Welcome to the Fantasy Audiobook. Marvel. Obtain the Devouring Power and Become the King of Gods. Chapter 61. After Coulson finished speaking, he asked Suzanne expectantly. He was looking forward to Suzanne's ability to predict the future. If he could know anything, it would be much faster than them investigating clues. Oakland, California. Suzanne thought about it and said. Coulson was immediately overjoyed and hurriedly asked, "What are the details?" "It should be an abandoned factory. I don't know the other locations." Enough. Although Coulson was a little disappointed, it was good enough that he had already locked down the approximate location. If they were allowed to investigate on their own, they didn't know how long it would take to find this clue. Without Coulson's orders, the others were already busy, starting to search and lock in the specific location. How do you know this?" Michael didn't seem to get used to this rhythm yet. Seeing others busy, he felt a little at a loss, so he walked next to Suzanne, maybe thinking that he and Suzanne were the same kind of people. After all, they were not ordinary people. Predicting the future is a not too reliable ability. Suzanne said calmly. "It's amazing. How do you have this ability? I mean, are you born with it? Or, like me?" Michael asked curiously. "You can ask them this question later, and they should tell you." Suzanne was not interested in explaining. Looking at Michael, he suddenly asked, "Have you always wanted to be a hero?" "Yes, now that I have this ability, I hope to become a hero and help others. My son also admires heroes, so I want to be a hero," Michael said with happiness on his son's face. "What if the cost of being a hero is that you sacrifice a lot and lose a lot? For example, your arms or legs?" Suzanne asked. Michael frowned slightly, as if he was really thinking about this problem. After a while, he shook his head. "I don't know." Suzanne shrugged and didn't ask further. "Found it!" Sky suddenly shouted, and a picture suddenly appeared on the virtual screen, which was a picture of an abandoned factory. Through the nearby surveillance, it can be determined that this is where it is. "Okay, then get ready to go. Michael, let's make you a battle suit. I think you might like it," Fitz said towards Michael. Michael nodded excitedly, and Suzanne followed curiously. In the laboratory, Fitz took out a black combat uniform. Michael took it, looking a little excited. For superheroes, combat uniforms are also a symbol. Michael had always dreamed of becoming a hero, so now that he has a battle suit, you can imagine how excited he is. After putting it on, Michael showed it to everyone. "How do you feel?" Fitz asked with a smile. "It feels very helpful and comfortable. This suit can help you adapt to many tactical tasks, and it can also measure your heart rate, systolic blood pressure, and blood sugar, so you can accurately grasp your physical condition. Of course, it also has the most advanced bulletproof protection function," Fitz said in explanation. "Thanks." Michael thanked them sincerely. "What do you think? Do you want to help you get one?" Fitz turned his head and asked Suzanne. Suzanne didn't say anything, but suddenly released his battle uniform and condensed it on his body. Well, pretend I didn't say that." Seeing Suzanne's clothes and then Michael's clothes, Fitz wisely chose to shut up. "Let's not talk about the functions for the moment, we can distinguish the high and low from the shape. Michael's suit looks like that of a third-rate street hero, while Suzanne looks like a cosmic-level superhero, a completely different level. However, the function of this battle suit is still good. Can you make a few for me later?" "Of course. I want this style," Suzanne asked. "No problem," Fitz agreed simply. "We have destroyed their factories before, but they will rebuild them soon. So this time, we have to figure out what useful information we can get, so we have to act quietly this time. Suzanne, you enter from the west entrance, and Michael and I enter from the direction of the dock." Michael was holding a computer with a floor plan of the factory on it. "Once you have your location memorized, get ready to take action." Suzanne and May entered the factory through the west gate. The factory was a bit dark and empty, with many cargo boxes placed there. After coming in, Suzanne looked around and said casually, "It seems that this place has been cleared. It may be too late." As soon as he finished speaking, Coulson and Michael had already encountered the centipede warrior and started fighting. "Walk," Suzanne shouted, and he and May went towards Coulson to support him. Just after running 2 steps, he suddenly heard a loud noise next to him, the door of a cargo box was pushed open forcefully, and a centipede warrior walked out of it. Okay, hand over. Suzanne shrugged and was about to take action. May, who was next to him, had already rushed forward and started fighting with the centipede warrior. I have to say that May's close combat skills are indeed very powerful, and she deserves to be known as a cavalryman. However, although May's attacks are sharp, they are not enough for a super warrior like Centipede Warrior. Her attacks will not cause harm to the opponent at all. Even with several fierce kicks, the opponent did not even move, one time. This made May somewhat unexpected. At this moment, Centipede Warrior grabbed her arm and hit her with a fist. May tried to struggle, but it didn't help, so she closed her eyes subconsciously. Boom, bang, there was a loud noise, as if something hit the cargo box. May opened her eyes and found a huge dark green fist floating in front of her. She subconsciously turned her head and saw that Suzanne had withdrawn his energy and walked over. Thank you, May whispered her thanks. Suzanne shook his head with a smile and walked towards the Centipede Warrior. The box of goods was dented, and Centipede Warrior lay on the ground unable to move. Despite his physical fitness, he was very capable of resisting a blow, but being punched by the energy of the ether lantern ring was too much for him and he couldn't bear it. Seeing Suzanne approaching, he struggled to get up, but failed to climb up several times. Suddenly, his body stood up on its own. No, not standing up, but floating. Suzanne slowly stretched out his hand and pressed it on him. In an instant, the Centipede Warrior's expression turned painful and ferocious. May watched from the side and knew what Suzanne was doing. He's devouring Centipede Warrior's abilities. Snap. After a while, Centipede Warrior fell to the ground. May hurried over to get information from the Centipede Warrior, but before she could speak, she saw the Centipede Warrior's head tilted, his eyeballs suddenly burst, and he died. Don't waste your efforts, go support Coulson and the others. Suzanne had expected this for a long time. Some kind of equipment was installed in the eyes of the Centipede Warriors. Clairvoyance could see what he saw through the eyes of these Centipede Warriors. It could also be activated by remote control to avoid leakage. Wind. When Suzanne and May came to Coulson's side, the situation here was not too optimistic. Coulson seemed to be injured, leaning against a nearby cargo box. Michael, on the other hand, was facing two Centipede Warriors, and was outnumbered and in danger. Go see how Coulson is doing. Suzanne shouted at May, then waved his arms, and two ropes appeared instantly and were wrapped around Centipede Warrior's body, and he was dragged away. Glancing at the embarrassed Michael, Suzanne nodded towards him, then turned around and let the two Centipede Warriors collide fiercely with each other in the air. One hit, two hits. After several consecutive collisions, the two Centipede Warriors were already stunned by the collision. Suzanne was slowly pulled back and pulled in front of him. Stretch out your hands and activate your devouring ability. The abilities of the two Centipede Warriors were swallowed up instantly, and they swallowed the Centipede virus 3 times in a row. Suzanne felt slightly uncomfortable. Are you okay? Coulson and others came over and asked with concern. Suzanne shook his head. It's okay, I may need to take a rest. Then you stay and rest, and we'll see if we can find any clues. Coulson said something and then left quickly with May and Michael. Suzanne walked to the nearby cargo box and sat down. The two Centipede Warriors were already dead. System, there seems to be something wrong. I only swallowed 3, so I shouldn't have any reaction. Why do I feel so uncomfortable now? Suzanne sat down next to the cargo box, frowning and asking the system. He could feel his body rolling at a very fast speed, which made him a little nauseous and very, very uncomfortable. The centipede virus is a variant of the extremis virus. It is mixed with a variety of elements and is somewhat repellent to the extremis virus in your body. In other words, the fusion process is not smooth. This has nothing to do with the fact that you have devoured several abilities, but because the extremis virus is related to the centipede virus. But you don't have to worry, your body is automatically adjusting to the fusion of the two viruses, so there won't be any danger. The system's answer made Suzanne breathe a sigh of relief. I didn't expect that the fusion of centipede virus and extremis virus would have such a problem. If the fusion is successful, the effect will definitely be stronger, right? As he thought about it, Suzanne felt that his head felt a little heavy and he felt a little drowsy. He stood up with difficulty and prepared to leave the factory. Anyway, Coulson and the others shouldn't be in any danger, and they won't gain anything. It would be too embarrassing if I fainted here. After leaving the factory, the breeze blowing outside made Suzanne sober up. The thought of falling asleep is a natural reaction of the body's fusion, and it cannot be sustained by willpower. I have something to do, so I'll leave for now and see you later. Suzanne said something on the walkie-talkie and flew away quickly. In the end, he didn't know where he landed before he landed. There happened to be a hotel nearby, so he went straight in. After opening the room, Suzanne lay down directly, and then lost his will. Suzanne felt as if he had had a dream. In the dream, his body had changed, a change that was difficult to describe, but he could feel full of power. Not knowing how long it took, Suzanne slowly woke up. Outside, night had fallen and it was pitch black. The room was a little dim. After getting up and turning on the light, Suzanne looked at his phone and realized to his surprise that it was already past 9 o'clock in the evening. I slept for 6 or 7 hours, right? After feeling the condition of his body, he could feel that his strength had increased a lot even if he didn't do anything. With a thought, his body turned into lava, and almost instantly, the room was filled with heat. Suzanne even found that the wooden bedside table showed signs of burning. It seems that the power after fusion has at least doubled. Suzanne nodded with satisfaction, and then checked the phone records. Sky, Coulson, several missed calls. Suzanne instantly remembered that they might be in trouble. Where are you? Suzanne called Sky back, and Sky's tone was slightly heavy. Where are you? Something happened. I know, I'll go back right now. As soon as he heard this tone, he knew how far things had progressed. Suzanne didn't check out, opened the window and flew away. When Suzanne returned to the plane, May, Sky, Simmons, and Fitz all had ugly expressions on their faces. Suzanne, Coulson was taken away, and Michael is probably dead too. Seeing Suzanne, Sky couldn't help but whisper. Sure enough, it has happened. Suzanne sighed in his heart, but he wasn't too nervous. He knew where Coulson was captured, and he also knew that Coulson knew the reason why he was resurrected. After all, he was stabbed to death by Loki during the Battle of New York. As for Michael, he did not die, but was transformed into a Death Warrior by the Centipede Warrior organization. Of course, there were some twists and turns during this period, but after all, the result was good. As for the twists and turns, you can avoid them outside as long as you are here. Don't be downcast, they will be fine. Suzanne said loudly. Are you sure? Sky asked. Suzanne nodded, pointed to his head and said with a smile, of course, I'm sure, because I can see it very clearly. After he said this, everyone remembered Suzanne's ability to predict the future. After understanding this, everyone breathed a sigh of relief and their emotions gradually became higher. You said just now that nothing will happen to them. Do you mean that Michael is fine too? Sky, who had calmed down, suddenly thought of what Suzanne had just said and asked hurriedly. Suzanne nodded. At least he's not dead, but I can't tell whether it's a blessing or a curse. Not dead. That's good. The clairvoyant people caught Michael's son before and threatened Michael, asking him to hand over Coulson to them. We originally planned to use the trick, but we didn't expect that the other party was too cunning and there was an explosion. We thought Michael had. Sky couldn't continue. Has it been blown up to ashes? Suzanne continued her words. If it is an ordinary person, maybe, but Michael has used the centipede virus. Although the centipede virus is not as good as the extremis virus, it has super recovery ability, but he will definitely not die. That's good. Do you know where they are now? Let's rescue them quickly, Sky asked, and the others looked at Suzanne nervously. Suzanne hesitated for a moment and said, I roughly know where Coulson is. I'll be responsible for finding him. As for Michael, I don't know where he is, but I can guarantee that he is not in danger and will come back in the future. It's just that, he may experience some things, but I think it is necessary for him to go through these things, at least, there is no harm. Quote. If nothing else, Michael would have become disabled by this time, right? Now that everything has happened, let it take its course. If we save him now, won't his pain be in vain? Believe me, I will bring Coulson back, Suzanne said solemnly to them. His words made everyone feel relieved, and they couldn't help but believe that Suzanne would definitely do what he said. Seeing that their mood improved, Suzanne left and prepared to find Coulson. Coulson is different from Michael. He was captured because the other party wanted to know the secret of Coulson's resurrection from the dead, so although he will be tortured, it is mainly mental. What's more, he also wants to get the answer. Some abandoned town. It was built in the 1940s to conduct nuclear tests, but after the project was stopped, it was abandoned. It is desolate, with no grass growing, and is surrounded by endless desert, as if it has been forgotten by the world. Coulson is being held here. Tormented by the Edison wave, he tried to break Coulson's will, but Coulson talked and laughed and never gave in. But the changes in things were beyond Coulson's imagination. A woman, Lena, suddenly appeared, and at the same time Edison received a call from a clairvoyant. During the conversation, Edison suddenly died of poisoning. Clairvoyant asked Lena to take her place and find another way to figure out the mystery of Coulson's resurrection. Raina is a smart and charming woman. She knows how to use language and exploit the vulnerabilities deep in people's hearts to achieve their goals. She let Coulson go, got him some water, and talked to him like a friend. Coulson was determined, but Lena's encouragement gradually changed his mind. He should be dead, but he is still alive, and has an almost beautiful memory of healing, but deep down in his heart he is shaken. He doubts that this is true, and wants to know if he is really dead and why he is alive. Already. Under Raina's instigation, Coulson finally lay down on the machine that can stimulate memories. His memory gradually changed. Massage Island. The original healing memory changed and turned into an operating room. His head was opened and a machine was working rapidly on his head to stimulate his brain nerves to stay awake. The pain was unbearable for him. He yelled and begged the other party to kill him. Don't let him live, don't let him suffer this kind of pain. Raina had been watching Coulson from the side, listening to his cries of pain, listening to his muttering to himself, taking the opportunity to record the information she wanted. Suddenly, Raina felt a palpitation in her heart, as if some danger was coming. This feeling is very sudden, but Raina believes in this feeling. After glancing at Coulson, Lena turned and left. As soon as she walked out of the room, Raina stopped subconsciously. She saw someone she didn't want to see and was afraid of seeing. Beautiful flower girl, we meet again. Suzanne looked at Raina with a smile, and Raina forced a smile, but it was extremely ugly. It seems that you haven't seen the true face of clairvoyance yet. But it doesn't matter. I said last time, I will give you time and give you a chance. Now, this sentence is still valid. Suzanne said with a smile. Why? Raina asked inexplicably. Why did I let you go over and over again? Although your skin is a little dark, you also have a different kind of charm. Maybe it's because I like you. Admire you. Suzanne looked at Raina. Although Raina is black, her skin color is not that completely dark, and she is not beautiful at first glance, but her character or temperament has a different kind of charm after being exposed to her for a long time. The most important thing is that Suzanne knows that she is not an absolute bad person. In this world, the division between good and bad people is not so clear. It just depends on who stands up for justice. A capable, charming, and not so bad girl. The most important thing is that there is no threat to herself or the people around her, so why not let her go? Although she is just an ordinary person now, she actually has another identity. Raina is gone. Although she doesn't believe that Suzanne really fell in love with her and let her go, at least she is still alive. After Raina left, Suzanne entered the house and saw Coulson lying on the machine in pain. Okay. Suzanne put him down and comforted the painful and excited Coulson. Coulson gradually calmed down and opened his eyes to look at Suzanne. Why bother? Some memories are not that important. It would be easier not to know than to know, Suzanne said with a sigh. Coulson shook his head weakly, his eyes firm. At least I know what happened. Shaking his head, Suzanne helped Coulson out of the room, released energy to wrap around him, then jumped into the air and left the town. Although Suzanne promised to bring Coulson back, no one expected it to be so soon. I went out for a trip, and when I came back, I had brought Coulson back. Although Coulson didn't seem to be well, they were minor injuries and were fine after simple treatment. In comparison, the mental shock may be stronger, but no matter what, everyone is relieved that Coulson is back safely. Coulson also knew that Michael was not dead, so they followed him to investigate his whereabouts, but unfortunately, there was no news. Are you going back to base? Sky came to Suzanne and asked softly. Suzanne nodded. Well, I don't have anything to do here. I'd better go back to the base and build the base as soon as possible. However, I still have something to do before I go back. What's going on? Sky asked curiously. Having dinner with a certain woman. I just checked and there is a very good restaurant. I just don't know if that beauty would appreciate it. She wants to have a candlelight dinner with me. Suzanne looked at Sky and smiled, said. Sky smiled, happily. I think she will definitely be willing. If there is something else after the candlelight dinner, she might also be willing. Is this a hint? Suzanne put his arm around Sky's waist and asked softly. Sky shook his head, drew circles on Suzanne's body with his hands, and said with a smile, My dear, this is not a hint, this is a clear statement. Well, it seems that if there are no other activities after the candlelight dinner, then I am too confused about the style. I don't know whether it was because of her drawing or for some reason, but Suzanne really felt a little itchy now. Think about it, Sky is his girlfriend in name, and she is also the one he has been with the longest and has the deepest affection for. Precisely because of this, Suzanne is also restraining himself, not wanting to make it happen so hastily the first time. But now it seems, some things are better just plain and simple. What's the saying? When there are flowers, it is necessary to break them. Don't wait until there are no flowers to break branches. Why did you bring me here? This doesn't seem to be a restaurant, right? Suzanne took Sky out of the base. This was Sky's first time on the street without a mission after becoming a S.H.I.E.L.D. consultant. During this period of time in S.H.I.E.L.D., Sky was either investigating his parents and life experience, or going on missions with him, and he never went out alone. Of course it's not a restaurant, doesn't it say? Clothing store, Suzanne said with a smile. Sky explained in confusion. Of course I know this is a clothing store, but why did you bring me here? Of course you came here to buy clothes. Although you usually dress very nicely, we are going on a date and have a candlelight dinner later. Shouldn't we dress up more beautifully? Not to mention, after dinner. It's active, so, Suzanne explained with a smile. Sky understood instantly, interrupted him and said, So, in order to leave an unforgettable memory, let's go in and pick out clothes quickly. Seeing the anxious yet happy Sky pulling his arm in, Suzanne couldn't help but smile softly. In the clothing store, there was a dazzling array of high-end dresses. The clerks were all very qualified. They did not look down on Suzanne and Sky just because they were wearing ordinary clothes. They introduced the clothes professionally. They are all so beautiful, my dear, what do you think of this one? Sky took a red evening dress and asked Suzanne. Suzanne thought for a while and said, Yes, it's very beautiful, but I think red doesn't suit your temperament. Black or purple would be better. Yeah, Sky nodded, very satisfied and happy with Suzanne's answer. He is not perfunctory about himself, but understands himself. A woman can find a man who understands her. Is there anything happier than this? How about this one? Suzanne took a tight black evening gown with strapless shoulders. Sky took it over to compare and liked it very much. Go try it. Seeing that Sky was satisfied, Suzanne looked forward to the effect of wearing it on her body. Sky entered the fitting room. Suzanne waited outside for almost 5 minutes when he heard Sky's voice. Honey, can you come in and help me? Of course, it's my honor. Suzanne responded with a smile and entered the fitting room. There was not much space inside. Sky's back was facing him, her white back was exposed, and the zipper was not closed. Let me help you. Suzanne helped Sky pull up the zipper from behind. The moment he pulled it up, he could clearly feel Sky making an inhalation movement. What's wrong? Are the clothes too small and a little tight? No. It's okay. Sky shook her head and turned around, and Suzanne instantly understood why she was inhaling. It's true that the clothes are a little tight, but it's not tight overall, just a little tight around the waist. What are you laughing at? Sky asked angrily when he found Suzanne staring at him and snickering. It's nothing, I just laughed at my girlfriend's good figure. The designer of this dress must not have thought that someone with such a good figure would wear it, otherwise he would definitely design the size to be more reasonable. Well, if you feel uncomfortable wearing it, just change it. It's not uncomfortable, and it's beautiful, don't you like it? Like it? Then take this one. Okay, listen to you, I remember there is a shawl out there, it just matches. This dress is indeed very beautiful, especially when it is worn on Sky, it is full of charm. However, it is a little cool and perfect with a shawl. As for waiting until dinner is over and no one else is around, then take off the shawl. Suzanne is very stingy. Naturally, only he can love his woman when she is at her most beautiful. After coming out of the fitting room, I bought the dress and shawl directly and put it on. Then he walked out of the clothing store and headed to the restaurant. Sky at this time was completely different from before. He had a high rate of turning heads along the way. Sky kept holding Suzanne's arm with a happy face. The feeling that he only had eyes for you and no one else made Suzanne his vanity was greatly satisfied. Why is there no one? The two came to the restaurant. Sky found that there were no other customers in the restaurant. After subconsciously saying something, he saw Suzanne's proud smile and reacted instantly. You're not going to take over this whole place, are you? Yes, every woman should have had similar fantasies in her heart, right? As your boyfriend, your man, I feel it is my obligation to give you a perfect date. Elegant environment, romantic atmosphere. Suzanne and Sky sat down face to face. The lights in the restaurant instantly dimmed, and the candlelight on the table flickered, illuminating Sky and making her look even more attractive. Especially the corner of the mouth that never drops, that kind of happiness and sweetness makes people unable to help but feel happy just looking at it. The melodious violin sounded, and the sound was cheerful and melodious. Romantic candlelight dinner, beautiful violin. Men and women who love each other. This dinner can be said to be quite perfect. Occasionally, our eyes would meet, and we would smile as if we were understanding. More than an hour had passed before we knew it. My dear, are you satisfied? Suzanne held Sky's waist and left the restaurant, and asked in a low voice towards Sky, who was leaning against him like a koala. Sky nodded heavily. She couldn't think of anything more satisfactory than this. This memory, she would never forget it. Then let's move on to the next situation. Suzanne smiled and tightened her waist slightly. Well, it's all up to you. Sky's pretty face turned slightly red and hot, and she responded obediently. There was a nice hotel near the restaurant. The two of them went to the hotel, got a room, and took the elevator. As soon as the elevator door closed, the two of them approached each other and kissed passionately as if they had a telepathy. Ding! The elevator door opened, but their emotions had already been ignited. They found their room, opened the door and rushed in. Bang! Suzanne gently hooked the door with his foot and closed it. The shawl was pushed aside by Suzanne, and the two of them clung to each other, as if they didn't even want to spend a little time apart. They were like conjoined twins who took off their clothes with great effort and eagerness, and then lay down. Looking at Sky, who had a pink complexion and affectionate eyes, Suzanne's eyes slowly moved down, just like a king examining his own territory, looking at every inch of the place carefully. Sky couldn't bear the scorching gaze and closed her eyes nervously. Suddenly, she felt hot and gentle hands on her face, and then she heard Suzanne calling her name softly. Sky opened her eyes subconsciously, but suddenly felt that it had already begun. What is happiness? For Sky, being able to be with a man she likes and who likes her is happiness. Perhaps because of her life experience, she lacked family care and lacked a sense of security, and she even felt that she was content. Even if, I don't know who my parents are, even if, so what if I don't have a happy family? I have him, Suzanne, he is my home. Sky slept very sweetly and deeply. His hands were already holding Suzanne's neck, and he refused to let go even in his sleep, for fear that Suzanne would disappear if he left. There were no lights on in the room and it was a little dim. Suzanne just looked at Sky up close and saw her smiling in her sleep. Sky reached out her hand in a daze and felt that there seemed to be no one around her. This startled her and she woke up instantly. When she opened her eyes, Suzanne was no longer around. She stood up in a panic. Just as she was about to call Suzanne's name, she suddenly heard the door knock, and then saw Suzanne walking and carrying something. Where have you been? Sky got up and threw herself into Suzanne's arms. Suzanne smiled and said, Go buy breakfast. I thought, Sky muttered. You thought I left. How is that possible? Although I may not be with you every day, it is absolutely impossible for me to leave at this time. Suzanne didn't expect that Sky would be so clingy to him. It seems that girls and women are indeed it's different. After Sky transformed, her dependence on him increased exponentially. Yeah, Sky nodded and got up from Suzanne. Are you still sleeping? If not, come and eat. Yeah, like a yes man, Sky happily agreed without getting dressed, and just had breakfast with Suzanne in the living room. Although it was just an ordinary breakfast, Sky seemed to be eating some kind of feast, feeling particularly satisfied. What are your plans today? Are you going to go back to S.H.I.E.L.D. or follow me? Suzanne asked. Sky thought for a while and said reluctantly, of course I want to follow you, but I'd better go back. I have found some clues. I hope I can investigate them as soon as possible, and then I can follow you forever. Quote. Okay, I'll take you back later. After having breakfast and resting for a while, the two of them washed up and got dressed before leaving the hotel. Back on the S.H.I.E.L.D. spacecraft, everyone found that Sky seemed a little different, as if she had a very unique charm. When they thought of Suzanne taking Sky away to spend the night outside, how could they not know? What happened? Coulson even made a joke about Suzanne, saying that he was injured, but you took Sky out for romance. Isn't it a bit too much? Suzanne just said one thing about this. Envy, you should also find a girlfriend. Maybe it can soothe your wounded heart. If you have nothing to do, you can take a rest today. I'm back at the base. If you miss me, just call me. Suzanne kissed Sky on the cheek and was about to leave. When he turned around, he happened to see Simmons. There was a very strange expression on her face, as if she was envious. Or, are you jealous? Suzanne smiled at her, and Simmons hurriedly put away his expression and smiled at him. You are pretty. After Suzanne left, Simmons came to Sky and couldn't help but exclaimed. Sky smiled and said, isn't the dress beautiful? No, it's not the clothes, it's your temperament, which is more feminine. Simmons thought for a moment and said, you are like a shining gem now, dazzling. Sky smiled sweetly, she could feel the change in herself as well. Is this the difference between girls and women? Suzanne, when can I become a woman? Simmons subconsciously thought of the scenes where he and Suzanne were getting along, of him lying on his lap, of him and himself the conditions proposed. Ah, sneeze. Suzanne suddenly sneezed while flying. It's strange, we just separated, but Sky misses me so soon. Shaking his head, Suzanne was about to speed up when he suddenly noticed a light appearing from the corner of his eye. It was a very familiar light. It was the light that flickered when the portal was opened. Why is she here? Suzanne was a little curious, so he changed his direction and flew over. Where are the people? After landing, Suzanne found that Flicker was missing. Looking around, I found an abandoned parking lot surrounded by scrapped cars. Suzanne was a little confused. Shuang was not in the base, so why did he come here suddenly? If it's for privacy, there's no need to choose to open the portal here, right? The confused Suzanne was about to call Shuang and ask, but suddenly he heard movement behind him. When he turned his head, he was surprised to find Shuang walking over from behind him. What are you doing here? Are you here to buy something? Because Flicker can teleport, she is basically responsible for the shopping, so Suzanne asked this question. Yes, Flicker nodded and walked over. Suzanne frowned slightly, feeling something wasn't right. Bland, Flickering's reaction was too bland. In the past, when Flickering saw him, he would call him boss first. It was absolutely impossible for him to react as bland as he did now. Etc. Suzanne frowned and shouted, are you okay? Me, of course I'm fine, Twinkle said doubtfully. No, you're in trouble. Her reaction further confirmed Suzanne's suspicion. Looking at her warily, Suzanne said with a sneer, although I'm not sure whether this is an illusion or mental control, I'm sure that you are not blinking normally. So, no matter who you are, you better come out, otherwise let me find you, and I will let you know what will happen to those who provoke me and provoke me. I'm curious, how did you tell? Twinkle's expression suddenly changed, becoming playful, and the tone of her voice was also somewhat different. Mind control. This shouldn't be an illusion, it should be someone controlling the Flickering. There are many people who know how to control minds. For a moment, Suzanne really couldn't guess who could control Flicker. It's very simple. Although you control Flicker, You are not her, so naturally you don't know how we get along. Suzanne looked at her coldly and said slowly. So that's it. It seems that you are really familiar with each other. You can tell the clues with just a few words. Shuang Shuang smiled softly and then said, want to know who I am? Then follow me. After she finished speaking, Huan suddenly released the portal. She glanced at Suzanne with a somewhat provocative look. Do you think I don't dare? Suzanne sneered. The other party clearly came for him. Even if there was any trap, he had to go. Jumping into the portal, the scenery in front of you suddenly changed. He appeared in a room that was very stylishly decorated. On the soft leather sofa, a blonde woman was holding a wine glass and looking at Suzanne with a smile. Behind her stood a red-skinned man. Behind Suzanne, there was a man leaning against the door. He has shawl-length hair, his eyes are painted black, and he is holding two short knives in his hands and playing with them casually. He looks a little unconventional and a little cold. Welcome to Hellfire. The blonde woman raised her glass and smiled at Suzanne. Hellfire Club. Suzanne was slightly surprised. The Hellfire Club is a relatively famous and powerful organization among mutants. It is different from the X-Men who try to coexist peacefully with humans and the Mutant Brothers to conquer the Earth and let mutants inform humans. Hellfire Club takes the elite route and develops its own. It is not low-key, but it is not that high profile either. Looking at the blonde woman in white clothes in front of him, Suzanne already knew who she was. Looking around, Suzanne named them one by one. White Queen, Red Devil, that is Jungtu, right? It seems that you know Hellfire very well. That would be even better. In fact, the purpose of inviting you here is to hope that you can join the Hellfire Club. The White Queen said with a smile. Suzanne pouted. The person who controls me invites me. This kind of invitation is really sincere. There's nothing I can do. Who doesn't know that you, Suzanne, are not easy to mess with? I don't want to send people to their deaths like Magneto. The White Queen lazily brushed her hair, pointed to the sofa opposite and said, sit down, I have no plans to fight with you. Really? Then you still plan to use your mind to control me? Suzanne sneered, walked over and sat down. Just now, he felt a surge of spiritual power pouring into his brain, but it was blocked by the spiritual barrier of the lamp ring. Obviously, the White Queen just tried to control herself mentally. I'm just trying, even though I know it's unlikely to succeed. The White Queen didn't deny it, with that calm look as if she just did a trivial thing. Tell me, what's the purpose of going to all this trouble to get me here? You were invited to join the Hellfire Club. What's the reason? Although you will also recruit non-mutants, why did you invite me? The most important thing is, why should I join? Suzanne said lightly. Actually, I've been paying attention to you since you had the ability to swallow pyro. At first, I thought you were also a mutant, but then your ability to swallow the Fantastic Four's Human Torch made me discover that you are not a mutant. Your abilities are very strong, very scary, scary enough to make everyone fear you and wish to destroy you. Only in this way can they ensure their own safety. The reason why you are so stable now is partly because of your strength, because of the method. However, it is only for now. When everyone knows your strength, someone will naturally take action. For example, Magneto. The White Queen's words made Suzanne curl his lips slightly. Of course he knew this. A person who could devour other people's abilities must make everyone fear him. If it were him, if he had the chance or confidence, he would also destroy him. However, Suzanne was not worried. So what? My strength is not so easy to figure out. Suzanne said calmly. Yes, I believe you will get stronger and stronger. It is precisely because of this that I want you to join the Hellfire Club. I can help you reduce your troubles and provide you with help. The White Queen said seriously. I can help you find whatever abilities you need. Believe me, as long as I help you, you can become stronger in a short time. It sounds good, but there is no free lunch in this world. If you help me like this, what will I have to pay? Suzanne asked. The White Queen shook her head and said, no, you don't need to pay anything. As long as you ensure the safety and development of Hellfire after you become stronger, it will be enough. This is just a piece of cake for you, isn't it? Hellfire still needs help and protection from others. Suzanne raised his eyebrows slightly. The conditions given by the White Queen seemed to be very good, even selfless. With the resources of the Hellfire Club, she can get whatever abilities she needs, and she doesn't need to step forward, which reduces a lot of trouble. And all he has to do is lend a helping hand when the Hellfire Club is in trouble. At first glance, it sounds like I got a big advantage. In reality, the White Queen is not a simple woman. Without the Black Emperor, she supported the Hellfire Club by herself. Instead of letting it decline, it developed very well. This shows her means and abilities. It's not easy for a woman to support such a big club. I'm very tired. Of course I hope I can get help. The White Queen sighed and said, but it will be different if I have you. Although it may bring some initial it's troublesome, but as long as you get stronger after this, no one will dare to provoke you, and as the club you provide help to, I think, you won't treat me badly, right? A very adventurous decision. Suzanne admired her a little. Regardless of whether what she said was true or false, she would definitely have to bear pressure from all aspects. If others didn't say it, Magneto would definitely bear the brunt, right? So, you agree to join? The White Queen asked happily. Suzanne smiled and shook his head. No, I'm not interested in joining. Why? The White Queen was a little confused. The conditions she gave were already very good, right? Help him solve his troubles and help him improve his strength. How could he not agree? Because your so-called conditions, or benefits, are not attractive to me at all, and I don't need a woman's protection. If anyone wants to come to me for trouble, let's do it. I will let them know to do so. What are the consequences? As for ability, I have my own channels and don't need your help. Suzanne stood up slowly as he spoke, glanced at Shuang Shui, who had been standing by the side, and asked the White Queen, can I release you from your control? The White Queen shrugged, flickering back to normal for an instant, and looked around in confusion. Boss, are you here? What is this place? I'll tell you later. Suzanne shook his head and then said slowly, there is an old saying in China that business cannot be done without kindness. Although there is no cooperation, I think, you should be happy to offer me a drink. The White Queen was about to speak when she suddenly discovered that Suzanne's eyeballs had turned black. At that moment, she suddenly had a bad premonition and subconsciously prepared to turn into diamonds, but she suddenly lost consciousness. She stood up, poured Suzanne a glass of wine and walked up to him. That's it. There doesn't seem to be any sincerity. I heard that there is an interesting way to drink wine. How about you hold the wine in your mouth and feed it to me? Suzanne said with a smile. You wanna die? After Suzanne finished speaking, the Red Devil became angry instantly. How dare you let the White Queen feed you wine with her mouth? You are insulting the White Queen. With a roar, the Red Devil suddenly disappeared, and then appeared behind Suzanne in an instant. At the same time, Zhenglu, who was leaning aside, also moved. The Red Devil was about to take action when he suddenly saw Suzanne waving his hand behind him. In an instant, a strong wind swept over him and blew him away. However, the Red Devil reacted quickly and teleported as soon as he flew out. Disappear, then reappear from the side. Lie down. As soon as the Red Devil appeared, a huge hammer appeared above his head and hit him directly. With a loud bang, the Red Devil was smashed to the ground, and the hammer instantly turned into a cage, trapping the Red Devil. The Red Devil kept teleporting, but found that he couldn't get out, as if he was trapped in a cage. This made him extremely panicked. He had never encountered such a situation, and he was able to trap his teleportation. The Red Devil's teleportation is different from other people's. It is somewhat similar to Blink's ability, but the difference is that Blink directly opens the portal of time and space, while the Red Devil teleports to a special space first, a bit like a transit station, and then teleport to other places to achieve the effect of teleportation. He can still reach the transfer station, but when he comes out, he is still in the same place, as if other places are blocked. Suzanne turned around and looked at Zhengtu. He was about to rush over and take action, but Wei Wei next to him was not a vegetarian. Although he hadn't figured out the situation yet, it was obvious that he was going to take action. The teleportation crystal was thrown out, flickering and spinning Zhengtu around. He would appear next to him, kick Zhengtu into the teleportation gate and then appear somewhere else. Zhengtu doesn't have any special abilities. Simply put, he has super endurance, strength, stamina, etc. He is similar to Captain America. He is a close combat character. He seems to have a certain sense of perception, but it has no effect on flicker. The flashing motion was too fast. This is also thanks to the training that Flicker has undergone during this period. If it were before the battle with Sue, her ability would definitely not be so strong. So, what do you think of the proposal I just made? Suzanne turned around and looked at the White Queen. Good. The White Queen responded, picked up the wine glass and took a sip, then approached Suzanne and kissed him. Feeling the wine flow into his mouth, Suzanne reached out and pinched her waist, then laughed proudly. You can actually control your mind. The White Queen's expression changed slightly, as if she had woken up from the mental control. She took 2 steps back, and her body suddenly changed, turning into a sparkling diamond in an instant. Thank you for your warm hospitality. The wine is very good, Suzanne said with a smile and greeted Shuang Shuang. In an instant, the portal opened behind him. Suzanne turned around and came to the portal, turned to look at the hesitant, angry White Queen and said with a chuckle, as a friendly reminder, if you control the people around me next time, it won't be as simple as feeding them wine. Don't give me the chance to devour you and your people. After saying that, Suzanne and Shuang Huan entered the portal and disappeared. Zheng Lu got up from the ground in embarrassment, and the cage on the Red Devil disappeared. The 2 of them came to the White Queen's side in an instant. The Red Devil said angrily, "Do you want me to catch them and bring them back?" "Can you catch him?" the White Queen asked calmly, and the Red Devil was speechless for a moment. "I didn't expect him to be able to control his mind. I was careless this time. It can be seen that he did this just to retaliate against me for controlling the flicker. It can also be regarded as a warning," the White Queen said in a very calm tone. What made the Red Devil very different was why she wasn't angry at all when she was so humiliated by Suzanne. Even if Suzanne's strength is not weak, it's not to the point where the White Queen is afraid, right? What makes the Red Devil even more puzzled is that the White Queen seems to be smiling, as if she is very satisfied. Pay attention to Magneto's situation. If he is harmful to Suzanne, let me know immediately. The White Queen ignored the puzzling Red Devil and said in a low voice. Yes, the Red Devil responded, and then followed Zhengtu and the 2 out. The White Queen walked back to the sofa and sat down. After exiting the diamond effect, she reached out and touched her lips. Suzanne, I am becoming more and more interested in you now. I really want to know how far you can grow. So, before that, I will help you solve some troubles. I hope you won't let me disappointed. The White Queen murmured to herself, but Suzanne and Huan Huan had already appeared in a remote place. Boss, what is going on? Who are they? Shuang Huan couldn't help but ask curiously. Hellfire Club, have you heard of it? Suzanne asked. Twinkle nodded. I've heard of it, it seems to be a mutant force. Was it the Hellfire Club just now? Why are we there? The blonde woman just now is called the White Queen. She has telepathy and mental control abilities. After the second mutation, she can even turn her body into diamond. The other red-skinned one is called the Red Devil. Her abilities are similar to yours, and she is also instantaneous. Shift. As for the guy you're dealing with, his name is Zhengtu. Even though he doesn't seem to have any special abilities, he is actually a master of fighting and strategy. Suzanne briefly introduced the 3 people, and then said, as for us, why you are there is because you were mind-controlled by the White Queen. Think about it, what were you doing before? Why were you controlled? Huan Huan shook his head. I don't know either. I came out to buy something, and then I don't know, and then it was just now. It seems that the White Queen has really been paying attention to me for a long time. She should know my movements, know that I came back from S.H.I.E.L.D., know that you came out to buy things, and then used mind control to lure me to the Hellfire Club. Sue the Battle found that the flicker was because she turned on the light from the portal, which was obviously intentional. He must have calculated that if he flew over there, he would definitely notice the flicker. It's all a calculation. Even if the White Queen really did this to cooperate with him and invite him to join the Hellfire, Suzanne still felt unhappy. This could barely be regarded as a show of strength to demonstrate the White Queen's strength. It's better not to provoke such a calculating woman, although, the wine just tasted really good. You haven't bought anything yet, right? Let's go and buy the things and then let's go back. Suzanne said softly, looking at the still confused flickers. Yeah, Twinkle nodded. We bought something together and returned to the base. Suzanne worked with them. Several days passed in a flash, and Suzanne stayed in the base without going out. During the day, they followed the construction of the base together, and at night, they absorbed ether particles. They were very peaceful. There was no movement from Magneto, and no one was sent to look for him. Hellfire was also very quiet, as if nothing had happened before. Even S.H.I.E.L.D. has no missions these days, as if the world has suddenly become peaceful. Although I know that the world will never be peaceful, these calm days are not bad. At least Suzanne was allowed to work steadily for a few days, and the construction progress was very good. But this peaceful life soon ended, because the copy was refreshed. After the system upgrade, the copy refresh time was shortened to 15 days, and the retention time was extended to 7 days. The third dungeon plane has also begun. Suzanne has considered the choice of dungeon plane. In the 600th world, he is more familiar with the two planes of Green Arrow and the Flash. At the same time, because they are both in the 600th world, they can also interact with each other. Judging from the timeline he analyzed, the one closest to the Green Lantern plane should be Green Arrow. When the Flash was born, Green Arrow had already been active in Star City for some time, and according to the news he saw in the Green Lantern plane, Green Arrow Oliver Queen was still in a dead state, which meant he was still alive, did not return. Therefore, the choice for the new copy is naturally Green Arrow. The reason why I chose this plane was firstly because of Phyllis. The second is because the energy rewards given by missions can upgrade the system. By the way, Green Arrow's fighting ability is quite strong, but he is weak in this aspect. So you can take this opportunity to improve your abilities in this area. Case selected. Green Arrow. Do you want to enter? Suzanne had just set the third plane when a prompt sounded directly from the system. Enter. After the words fell, the scene in front of Suzanne had changed. Speaking of which, he was a little curious about how this system transported him to the dungeon. His feeling was not strong, but the surrounding scene seemed to have changed instantly. Star City, a certain street corner. Suzanne walked slowly on the street. Each superhero has his own territory, or protection area, such as Green Arrow's Star City, Flash's Central City, Green Lantern's Beach City, or Superman's Metropolis. Of course, there's also Gotham City's rich, handsome Batman. Star City is not particularly prosperous, and it is a city with a large gap between rich and poor. The rich are very rich, while the poor are getting poorer. It is easy to feel the current situation in this city when walking on the street. Oliver Queen is alive. Missing billionaire reappears. While walking, Suzanne suddenly heard the sound of the TV coming from the store next to him. He turned around and saw that the news on the TV was reporting the news about Oliver Queen. It looks like Green Arrow has just returned to Star City. I didn't expect that this fool was still alive. What a piece of luck. Someone next to Suzanne muttered a curse and turned around angrily and left. Suzanne shrugged. It seemed that Oliver Queen was really unpopular. Yes, this rich playboy was an out-and-out playboy before he became Green Arrow. Mission released. Main mission. Help Green Arrow protect Star City. Side mission 1. Cooperate with Green Arrow to perform more than one mission. Side mission 2. The friendship with Green Arrow reaches over 50%. Story mission. The birth of the Justice League, leading the formation of the Justice League. Friendliness is on. The series of prompts surprised Suzanne. It was normal to issue a mission, but this time it seemed a little different. System, what is the friendliness level? Friendliness, as the name suggests, is the degree of friendly relationship. The higher the friendship, the better the relationship and the more trust. At the same time, the fighting arena can be opened when the friendship reaches more than 80%. What's a fighting arena? It seems like you have more and more functions after upgrading. Suzanne sighed. The fighting arena is a place for fighting competitions. Characters with a friendship level of 80% can appear in the fighting arena, and the host can spar and fight with them. Okay, this introduction is really official. Generally speaking, increasing friendship will be beneficial. Opening the fighting field is equivalent to having an additional training ground, right? This is really good. You can often learn from each other and improve yourself. Combat ability. By the way, is this friendliness only available in the dungeon plane, or is it also available in the main world? All of them. Is that so? It seems that this friendliness was activated because I entered the third dungeon, right? However, this mission is a bit unreasonable. There are just main missions and side missions. What the hell are plot missions? Leading the formation of the Justice League. Why didn't there be a copy of Green Lantern before? Also, I only stayed for 7 days, how could I form the Justice League in 7 days? Isn't this a big deal? Suzanne complained depressedly. Story missions refer to joint missions started in different dimensions of the same world, with no time limit. The system explained. No time limit. That's about right. Suzanne breathed a sigh of relief. Although there was no punishment for failing the mission, there was no reward for failing to complete the mission. Now that there is no time limit, there is no need to worry. So, in general, the main and side tasks need to be completed as soon as possible. But in the meantime, Suzanne wanted to go to Hyben City to see Phyllis and make sure she was still there and that there was no problem. In this way, when I turn around and leave, I can safely erase the Green Lantern's plane and open a new one. As long as the timeline is connected, it is enough to retain one DC plane. Suzanne bought a map from the newsstand on the street and found the location and direction of Hyben City. Then he released the energy of the lantern ring, soared into the sky, and flew quickly towards Hyben City. Not long after, Suzanne arrived at Hyben City and found Phyllis home among many high-rise buildings. Slowly floating to the balcony and landing, I pushed open the balcony. There was no one at home. Phyllis should be in the company at this time, right? Suzanne thought for a while, then took out his phone and called Felice. Hello, I'm Phyllis. The phone was connected, and Phyllis's voice came from inside. It seemed like she connected directly without looking. Hello, I'm Suzanne. Suzanne deliberately said in the same tone. Ah, Phyllis called out immediately on the other end of the phone, followed by rapid breathing. You finally called me. I called you several times but didn't get through. I thought something had happened to you. Maybe the signal is not good. Where are you? You're at the company. Have you finished handling your matters? When will you come back? It will have to wait, but I sent something to your house. What was delivered to my house? You will naturally see it when you get back. I still have something to do here, so hang up first. After Suzanne finished speaking, he hung up the phone. Phyllis put down the phone and couldn't help but wonder what Suzanne had given her. No, I'd better go back and take a look. The curiosity in her heart was like a cat scratching her, making it impossible for her to concentrate on her work. Therefore, she simply put it down for the time being and went back to take a look. Come out of the company and drive all the way home. Arriving at the door of her home, Phyllis found that there was nothing at the door, which made her curious. Didn't you say something was delivered? Why not? You can't send it directly to the house, right? She lives on her own. How can she be let in when no one opens the door? Etc. Phyllis suddenly thought of a possibility, hurriedly took out the key to open the door, then quickly opened the door and walked in. Suzanne, is that you? Are you back? As soon as they entered, Phyllis shouted excitedly. Suzanne was sitting in the living room. Hearing Felice's shout, Suzanne was a little surprised. How did you know it was me who came back? You're really back. Seeing Suzanne, Phyllis rushed over excitedly, with great strength, and threw Suzanne down on the sofa. Okay, I like your strong way of welcoming you. Suzanne kissed her and said with a smile. I originally wanted to give you a surprise, but I didn't expect you to be so smart and guess that it was me who was back. I don't know, I just feel like you're back. Phyllis asked with a smile, but how did you get in? Have you forgotten that I can fly? Suzanne pointed to the balcony with a smile. Phyllis patted her head and said cutely, yeah, I'm really stupid. By the way, will you still leave when you come back this time? I won't leave, but I should leave here occasionally. You know, I have special abilities and can be considered a superhero, so. I understand. Phyllis nodded repeatedly. As long as the two places are not separated, it is normal to leave occasionally for busy work. By the way, you asked me to help you choose a house. I've already found it. I'll take you to see if you like it. Phyllis suddenly remembered and said. Suzanne shook his head apologetically. Let's look at this later when we have time. I have some things to deal with now. Are you busy this week? If nothing happens, can I take you somewhere? I can make arrangements. Phyllis said. That's fine. Then make arrangements as soon as possible. When you make arrangements, we'll set off. Suzanne was going to take her to Star City. On the one hand, it was a vacation, and on the other hand, she could also complete the mission. Anyway, Phyllis knew her identity, so there was nothing inconvenient about it. Yes, Phyllis nodded, quickly got up from Suzanne, and started making phone calls to arrange the trip. Half an hour later, after she finished the phone call, she was settled down. Suzanne carried her to the balcony, slowly floated into the air, and flew back towards Star City. This was not the first time that Suzanne had flown with Felice in his arms, but Felice was already excited. This feeling was completely different from flying in an airplane. Where are we going? Phyllis asked Suzanne curiously. Star City. Suzanne said something, and the energy of the light ring suddenly released around the two of them, and then turned into an airplane. Suzanne and Felice sat together. Felice was surprised. She didn't expect that it could be like this. Variety. Why are you going to Star City? Phyllis looked around curiously for a long time before continuing to ask. I'm going to find someone, a superhero from Star City. This can be considered my mission. I can probably stay for a week. After a week, I have other things to do and I may have to leave. Suzanne explained simply. Phyllis was a little disappointed when she heard that Suzanne was leaving in a week, but after thinking about it she became happy again. Suzanne had a task to do, but he still took him with him. Wasn't this enough to prove his status in his heart? What's more, which girl doesn't worship heroes? Her boyfriend is a superhero, what else could she be dissatisfied with? After a short reunion, Felice had a lot to say to Suzanne. The two of them just looked at each other and chatted in silence until they reached the sky above Star City and landed on an abandoned open space. Then they stopped. Down. Withdrawing his energy, Suzanne hugged Felice and said, "Let's find a hotel to stay in first." Yeah, Phyllis nodded. The two then went to a well-known hotel in Star City, opened a suite, and asked the hotel to bring some food over. It was almost noon after the two of them had eaten. Suzanne sat lazily on the sofa, and Felice leaned against her, feeling the warm sunshine and enjoying the quiet moment. I don't know how long it took, but Phyllis broke the silence by speaking. "Dear, didn't you say you were looking for a superhero from Star City? When will you go?" Phyllis asked, raising her head. Suzanne smiled and kissed her, and said, "Don't worry, it will be tomorrow." "Is it because of me?" "If it's because of me, you don't have to do this. As long as you can be together, I will be very satisfied. Although I miss you very much and want to be with you all the time, but our time is still it's a long time, isn't it? I am willing to be the woman behind your back," Phyllis said softly. Phyllis's character is like this, she is sensible, and she can clearly distinguish what is important. Suzanne was actually planning to spend a day with Phyllis first, and then go find Oliver Queen. After all, 7 days should be enough time for him to complete the main and side tasks. But since Phyllis said so, Suzanne could still say what. He kissed her hard and said, "Okay, the woman behind me, I'll go meet this superhero first and I'll be back soon." "Go ahead, honey." Phyllis nodded in response. Suzanne slowly stood up and left the hotel. Oliver Queen just came back, and the first thing he did when he came back was to find Laurel, his ex-boyfriend. Speaking of which, Oliver Queen did live up to his reputation as a playboy and playboy. When he went to sea 5 years ago, Oliver Queen took Laurel's sister Sarah with him. The two got together and ended up on the ship. But it sank, and everyone was dead. Therefore, when Oliver Queen came back, he came to Laurel to apologize. After the failure, he and Tommy were attacked when he left, which was also the reason why he started his journey as the Green Arrow. Speaking of which, Laurel is indeed very beautiful, and she later became the second-generation Black Canary. The first-generation Black Canary was her sister Sarah, but no one knows about it yet, and that's all for later. Suzanne has no interest in Laurel, mainly because her relationship is too complicated. She was Oliver Queen's girlfriend at first. 5 years after Oliver Queen's death, she ended up with Oliver's good friend Tommy. Together, and then she had an incessant relationship with Oliver. Although she didn't end up with Oliver in the end, Suzanne only liked the original product. At this time, Suzanne was standing on the street corner holding coffee in his hand, looking leisurely at a man and woman in the distance. This couple is Oliver Queen and Laurel. It seemed that the two of them were not having a pleasant conversation. Laurel said something, then turned and left to go back to the law firm. When passing by a man, she said something dissatisfied. This man was Tommy, Oliver Queen's best friend, a typical rich second generation. Tommy shrugged helplessly and walked towards Oliver Queen, and then they went to the alley next to them to get the car. Susan did not follow them, but watched them enter the alley, and then rushed into a van. Then there seemed to be gunshots, but soon everything calmed down again and the van drove out. After watching the van leave, Susan chased after it. His speed was very slow at first, but when there was no one around, he flew directly up and followed the van in the air. The van drove around a long way, and then drove into an abandoned factory. The van stopped, and a group of men with masks and guns took Oliver Queen and Tommy inside. Susan looked up and saw that a window above the factory was broken. His body slowly floated up. Susan went in through the window and soon saw Oliver Queen tied to a chair and Tommy lying next to him, on the ground. Tisk, tisk, this treatment is too bad, isn't it? Susan shook his head secretly, but who made Oliver Queen the protagonist? What's more, this group of people came to him and wanted to know whether his father also survived with them. Oliver Queen. The man wearing a mask that looked like the Red Skull punched Oliver Queen to wake him up, then pointed an electric baton at him and asked in a deep voice, Oliver Queen, your father was in that accident, did you survive? Oliver Queen woke up and looked around calmly, observing the number and equipment of the other party. The man in the Red Skull mask was a little unhappy. I'm asking you a question, and you need to answer me, do you understand? The electric baton was placed sharply on Oliver Queen's body, and the strong electric shock made Oliver Queen scream. The man in the Red Skull mask bent over and looked at him. Did he go to a desert island? Did he say anything to you? He asked while continuously shocking him with an electric baton. Under the pain, Oliver Queen seemed to give in. Yes, he said it, he said. I'm going to kill you. Oliver Queen glanced at Tommy, and after confirming that he was unconscious, he looked up at the red hole mask and said in a deep voice. Should we start? Susan couldn't help but become interested and wanted to see what Oliver Queen's skills were like. Looking at Oliver Queen's sharp eyes, the man in the red hole mask smiled, laughing, as if he was laughing at his overestimation of his abilities. Are you hallucinating? You are handcuffed to a chair. Really? Oliver Queen slowly spread his hands. Now, not anymore. How is it possible? The man in the Red Skull mask looked at Oliver Queen's hands with some disbelief, and hurriedly prepared to take action. But Oliver Queen reacted quickly, picked up the chair and threw it directly at him, then grabbed the electric baton and shocked another person. At this time, a man in the distance opened fire with a gun. Oliver Queen pulled a man over and stood in front of him. Bullets hit him one after another. When the bullets were fired, Oliver Queen suddenly ran. The man turned and ran, with Oliver Queen in hot pursuit. The movements are quite crisp and neat, which is already very strong for an ordinary person. Especially, what he is really good at is archery. Suji was slightly disappointed. Although Oliver Queen's movements were crisp and neat, he was not so good at it. Susan was satisfied. Maybe it's because the opponent is too weak and has no chance to perform. Seeing that Oliver Queen was already chasing after him, Susan thought for a moment, then the ether suit suddenly covered his whole body and then followed him out. Outside, gunfire rang out. Oliver Queen's physical fitness is still extremely strong, and the tracking movements look very pleasing to the eye, giving it a parkour feel. The movements were very responsive. Soon, you were chasing each other and entered the factory next to you again. Bullets were crackling in an endless stream. Oliver Queen ran at a very fast speed, jumped up suddenly, grabbed the iron rope hanging next to him, and swung in the air. Then he came in front of the man, knocked off his gun, and then turned him around and strangled his neck. Don't kill me. The man reluctantly begged for mercy. But Oliver Queen shook his head with a firm attitude. No, my secret cannot be known to others. Click. Oliver Queen's arms used strength to break the man's neck and slowly put him down. Turning around, he was about to go back to check on his friend Tommy, but suddenly he found a person standing behind him, a man in a black uniform. This man looked young and had no mask on his face. He could clearly see that he was a man. Young, handsome Asian face. At this time, this face was smiling, drinking coffee and looking at himself. It looked very weird. I seem to have accidentally learned your secret. Are you going to kill me too? Looking at Oliver Queen's surprised look, Suzanne asked with interest. Who are you? Oliver Queen looked at him warily. This man appeared so suddenly that he didn't even notice that he appeared behind him, and he seemed not to be with the masked men. Want to know who I am? It's simple. As long as you can beat me, I will tell you. Suzanne smiled, stretched out his hand, put his fingers together, and hooked him. Although Oliver Queen knows who the person in front of him is, but since he wants to take action, let's fight him. With a low growl, Oliver Queen rushed forward, very quickly and with crisp movements. Suzanne held coffee in one hand and resisted with the other. He didn't use any abilities. After all, although Oliver Queen was powerful, he was just an ordinary person. Using abilities would be to bully him. What's more, Suzanne's purpose is also to increase his close combat ability. Oliver Queen is very powerful, and his moves are fast and tricky. He is completely capable of fighting. Suzanne's physical strength is stronger than that of Oliver Queen, and his reactions are also very fast, but he has a certain ability. It feels overwhelming, as if you will be defeated after just a few moves. This made Suzanne very amazed. That's it, this is the close combat ability he wants. Boom. Suzanne punched Oliver Queen, but Suzanne didn't move at all. Oliver Queen was shocked and took several steps back. There was a dull pain in his fist, and he couldn't help but move his fingers to relieve the pain. He looked at Suzanne in surprise, a little surprised by Suzanne's physical strength and strength. Suzanne slowly walked aside, put down the coffee, then walked back and said excitedly, "Come on, keep going." Bang, bang. The two were fighting together again. This time it could be said that they were fighting hard. Suzanne tried to take the initiative to attack, but Oliver Queen still had more experience than him, and he resolved them one by one. The more Suzanne got, the more excited he became. In the end, he completely gave up on defense and switched to a fighting method of exchanging injuries for injuries. After a few punches, a look of pain appeared on Oliver Queen's face. Stop, stop fighting. Suzanne suddenly shouted to stop, but Oliver Queen got angry, ignored him and rushed forward again. Suzanne shook his head. A dark green and transparent cell suddenly appeared next to Oliver Queen. It appeared very suddenly. Oliver Queen directly bumped into it and then bounced back. He looked at the cell with some surprise and swung it hard, but unfortunately the cage was unbreakable. Suzanne turned around and took back the coffee, then bent down and sat down. The moment he sat down, a huge sofa appeared below, just in time to catch Suzanne. Crossing his legs and drinking coffee, Suzanne looked at Oliver Queen quietly. After a moment, Oliver Queen stopped. Calm down. Then listen to me. My name is Suzanne, from Binhai City. If you pay attention to the news, you may have heard of a name. Suzanne said with a smile. Green Lantern, Oliver Queen said suddenly. It seems that you have heard it. This will save me an explanation. I came to you for no other reason than to get acquainted. Now it seems that my trip was not in vain. You should still have there are a lot of things to deal with, so, when you are done, if you are interested, come find me. I think you should know how to find me. Suzanne said with a smile, and the cell next to Oliver Queen suddenly disappeared. Just when he was surprised, he suddenly discovered that Suzanne had disappeared. Green Lantern, Suzanne. Oliver Queen muttered something to himself, and then quickly went back. His friend Tommy was still waiting for him. Not to mention that he was kidnapped and someone died. The police would definitely come to the door. Explain how you were rescued. After all, he and Tommy were just ordinary people, and the other party had many people and guns. Originally, he planned to say that a hooded man saved him, but now, he has a new idea, a ready-made shield, Green Lantern. Not to mention that Oliver Queen used the Green Lantern name as a shield after calling the police, claiming that he was saved by the Green Lantern. After Suzanne came back, Phyllis had just finished taking a bath, wrapped in a bath towel and was watching the news. Since she knew after her boyfriend became a Green Lantern, she paid special attention to some superhero matters. She often read some news about superheroes, and then compared them with Suzanne. Naturally, she finally came to the conclusion that no one is better than her boyfriend. Suzanne Chiang. Although it seems boring, Phyllis enjoys it. Come back so soon. Suzanne came in and startled Felice. Suzanne nodded and looked at Felice's body with burning eyes. Sometimes, half hiding her face while holding her Pippa was more attractive. Yes, I just went to say hello. If nothing else happens, he should come to me later. Who is he? What superpowers does he have? Phyllis asked, standing up and walking towards Suzanne in a deliberately seductive gesture. But before she even got close, Suzanne rushed over and hugged her tightly, leaning heavily against him. Let's discuss this later. Now, don't you think we should do something more important? It's all up to you, Phyllis said, raising her head. Really, that's not as good as. Suzanne smirked and pressed Felice's shoulders to let her squat down slowly. Felice blushed and understood what he meant, but she didn't refuse. He stretched out his little hand and unbuttoned Suzanne's pants. As night fell, the two contented people lay together and talked about love. Oliver Queen did not come, and Suzanne was not in a hurry. He believed that Oliver would definitely come to him. After all, he needed to hide his identity, and now he has discovered it. Yeah, it's impossible not to figure it out. If you don't come tonight, you will definitely come tomorrow. Therefore, Suzanne enjoyed the warmth with Felice in a down-to-earth manner. Early the next morning, Oliver Queen was ready to come to Suzanne. However, because of the kidnapping case the previous day, Oliver Queen's mother was worried about him going out alone and found him a black bodyguard, John Digg. Of course Oliver Queen didn't want anyone to follow her, but her mother said it would make her feel at ease, so he had no choice but to agree. It was not difficult for him to get rid of a bodyguard. After getting in the car, Oliver Queen chatted with John Diggle and asked about him. This John Diggle was once a soldier and became a bodyguard after retiring. John Diggle introduced his identity and at the same time expressed his strong confidence that he could ensure the safety of Oliver Queen. However, after he finished speaking, he found that Oliver Queen was missing. He had disappeared from the moving car. Yes, silently. After getting rid of John Diggle, Oliver Queen went directly to the hotel. He had already found the hotel where Suzanne was staying. He wanted to find out why Suzanne came to see him. Moreover, he seemed to know his secret. How did he know it? Bang bang bang. Oliver Queen came to the hotel, found the room where Suzanne lived, stood at the door and knocked. After a while, the door opened. Oliver Queen was stunned when he saw the person opening the door. It was not Suzanne, but a very beautiful woman. He was stunned, wondering if he was looking in the wrong place, but he heard the woman say, "Are you Oliver Queen? The billionaire who died 5 years and suddenly came back to life?" God, I really didn't expect him to say that. The person will be you. Aren't you here to see Suzanne? Yes, come in. Phyllis invited him in and explained, he just got up and was taking a shower. You can sit down wherever you want. Thank you. By the way, who are you? Oliver Queen nodded and asked after coming in. I'm his girlfriend, my name is Phyllis. Phyllis then remembered that she hadn't introduced herself yet. Oliver Queen. Although the other party knew his identity, Oliver Queen still introduced himself. Oliver Queen could tell that Phyllis was just an ordinary person, and she knew Suzanne's identity and did it openly without covering it up. This can be seen from the side that Suzanne does not have any malicious intent or conspiracy. Before coming, he also investigated the information on Green Lantern, but unfortunately there was very little information. There was only a brief report, and nothing could be seen at all. You came. Not long after, Suzanne walked out, saw Oliver Queen, said hello with a smile, and sat down opposite him. I'm just here to figure out your intentions. What do you mean by looking for me? Oliver Queen asked directly. Suzanne smiled and shook his head. Don't worry, Oliver Queen. You were in a shipwreck 5 years ago. Everyone thought you were dead, but you survived on a purgatory island in the Chinese waters and even practiced. You have a lot of skills. You came back because you want to save this city and atone for your father's sins. Am I right? Oliver Queen responded noncommittally. It seemed that he did know my secret. After talking about you, let's talk about me. You know that I have an identity called Green Lantern. This is just my identity or one of my abilities. This world is very big, or in other words, the universe is very big. There are a group of Green Lantern Corps, simply put, are envoys to maintain peace and are in charge of many sectors. The Earth and the surrounding planets belong to Sector 2814. To a certain extent, they are under my jurisdiction. Therefore, I have many things to do. I'm so busy, sometimes I can't take care of things on Earth. There are all kinds of dangers in this world every day, and similarly, many cities also have their own superheroes guarding them. You, Green Arrow, are the guardians of Star City. So I came to you, partly to get to know you, and partly to see if there is anything I can do to help. Of course, this is also an inspection. Chapter 71. Although Suzanne has never been to the headquarters of the Green Lantern Corps, or in other words, the Green Lantern Corps has not recognized his identity, it doesn't matter, no one else knows this anyway. Inspection. What is the investigation? That's a lot of information for Oliver Queen. He had just prepared to save Star City and save a city, but the Suzanne in front of him had already expanded its scope to the entire Earth and even the universe. Didn't I just say that other cities also have their own superheroes guarding them, but the horizon is still too small. It should not be limited to the city, but should be wider. When there are some powerful enemies, you alone cannot when fighting against each other, only when everyone gathers together can we hope to defeat the enemy, and this, everyone, is the candidate for my inspection. Oliver Queen was still a little confused. He didn't understand why Suzanne told him this, and he didn't understand why he was chosen. Yes, he does have some abilities, which are stronger than ordinary people, even better than many people, but after all, he is just an ordinary person. He has no superpowers, let alone the ability to protect the entire Earth or even the universe. Looking at Oliver Queen, who was still confused, Suzanne said with a smile, "Actually, I still know a little about you. Some of your actions and things are actually not strictly speaking in line with the standards of a hero. At least most people will, I think so. Heroes fight criminals and bring them to justice without killing them. But the consequence of doing so is that they commit crimes again and again and cause trouble again and again. So, I need you like this. Dark hero. Methods and means are not important. What is important is, you have a righteous heart. I'm very grateful for your consideration and understanding, but I'm not a hero. I just want to do something for this city." Oliver Queen shook his head and said in a deep voice, "So, although I don't know what is the purpose of the inspection, but I'm afraid I'm not the right candidate." He didn't care about Oliver Queen's polite rejection of Suzanne, and he didn't plan to form the Justice League now. It could only be regarded as a concept. It was enough to let Oliver Queen know that he had this intention and idea. What's more, just now, he received a system prompt. Arrow. Oliver Queen, 5% friendly. This 5% friendship level should be increased because of my appreciation for him, right? Although it is a little short, it is a good start after all. Suzanne smiled and said to Oliver Queen, "You will know later whether it is suitable for you, but now. I think you won't refuse my help, right? For example, I will help you get a secret base so that you can do things more conveniently. After all, a person's power is limited, isn't it?" Oliver Queen was really moved. After all, he couldn't reveal his identity or ask for help. It would be best if Suzanne could help. But he was really embarrassed to ask Suzanne to help for no reason. Worry. His heart was inclined to what Suzanne said, but he was not so easy to believe in other people's characters. He has changed a lot in the past 5 years, one of which is lack of trust. That's it. I know there is a place that is very suitable. Time is tight. Let's go there now. Seeing Oliver Queen's hesitation, Suzanne didn't give him time to think about it. Only by helping him can you increase your friendship and complete the mission. What's more, there are some things that Oliver Queen would do even without him, so why waste the opportunity to increase friendship? Suzanne simply didn't give Oliver Queen a chance to refuse. The energy shield enveloped Oliver Queen and Phyllis respectively, and then Suzanne floated out of the window. Suddenly rising into the air, Oliver Queen was a little panicked but did not lose his calm. He curiously studied the energy shield, trying to figure out what it was. Not long after, the three of them slowly fell down. "This is my father's original factory." After landing, Oliver Queen looked around and said with some surprise. Suzanne nodded and walked in while talking. "Yes, this factory is abandoned. Basically no one will come here." After entering, Suzanne stamped his feet and said, "It should be empty down here, right? As long as this place is opened up, there will be an excellent secret base below. As for the top, you can decorate it into a nightclub, like your Oliver Queen's name. I believe the business will be very good. No one would have thought that this would be the Green Arrow's base, and it would also be an excellent cover for your frequent presence here. Oliver Queen couldn't help but nodded repeatedly. It's indeed perfect. You can do things in the nightclub openly and honestly. As for now, we can take care of things down there first. Okay, I'll prepare things, Oliver said. After all, if you want to break through the ground, you can't do it without hammers and other tools. That's not necessary. Suzanne stopped Oliver Queen with a smile, and a huge hammer appeared above his head. Boom! The giant hammer fell, and the ground shook instantly, causing cracks to appear. Suzanne frowned slightly, as if he was a little dissatisfied with the effect of the hammer. As soon as he thought about it, the giant hammer turned into a pile driver and began to smash. Within 5 minutes, the ground suddenly collapsed. Suzanne walked over, took a look, and nodded with satisfaction. The ground was originally hollow, so Oliver Queen jumped down first, followed by Suzanne holding Phyllis in his arms, and slowly fell down. It's a little dark inside and a lot of dust. Looks like it needs a good cleaning. Suzanne waved his hand, and a ball of energy enveloped Phyllis, and then transformed into a huge vacuum cleaner and started sucking her up. Your ability is really special. Oliver Queen looked at Suzanne dumbfounded and murmured. It's okay. Although the things I conjure are also effective, they rely on energy after all. As long as I tear off the energy, it will disappear. I'm still working hard now. If I succeed, maybe the things I conjure in the future will be really exists. Ether particles or reality gems. If you completely swallow the ether particles, you can have the ability to modify the display, and the things you change can become reality. Just like the magic pen Ma Liang, whatever he draws, he can have. Can't you create an extra energy shield? Oliver Queen complained to Suzanne, covering his nose. He now understood why Suzanne suddenly covered Phyllis with an energy shield. What a big gray. Actually, you really don't need to do anything here now. It's still in the way if you stay here. You can go back and get your equipment and things you will use in the future. To be honest, I really want to see your archery skills. Getting in the way. This is my base. Oliver Queen said something depressed, but turned around and left. 2 hours later, Oliver Queen was back. When he returned here again, he was shocked to find that he had a completely new look. The space had been completely cleaned out, and the dust had disappeared. It was so clean that he could not even recognize it. I'm finally back. Come on, let me see how your archery skills are. Just now, Phyllis asked me what your abilities are. I said your archery skills are very good. Don't let me do that. It's embarrassing in front of my girlfriend. Suzanne couldn't wait to say to Oliver Queen. Phyllis next to him was a little embarrassed, but her eyes were full of expectation. Oliver Queen was a little uncomfortable being stared at by Suzanne and Phyllis. His arrows had always been used to kill people, but now it felt like an acrobatic performance. Depressed as he was, Oliver Queen opened the box, took out his bow and arrows, and started playing with them. Needless to say, Oliver Queen's temperament instantly became a little different with a bow and arrow in hand, and his eyes were very sharp. Suzanne suddenly used energy to create a tennis ball and threw it towards Oliver Queen. Oliver Queen reacted very quickly, turned around, pulled the bow, and with a whoosh, the bow and arrow had pierced the tennis ball and nailed it to the wall. Suzanne didn't say anything, and at the same time he conjured 3 tennis balls and flew them at different angles and speeds. Whoosh whoosh. 3 tennis balls were pinned to the wall again. That's amazing. Phyllis clapped her hands and said in amazement. Suzanne withdrew his energy, clapped his hands and said, "You are really good at archery. I know a guy who is also good at archery. I just don't know which one of you is better." What's his name? Oliver Queen was absolutely confident in his archery skills, so he asked curiously. His name is Hawkeye. If there is a chance in the future, I can let you compete. Suzanne hasn't had the chance to meet Hawkeye yet, but as a representative of archery in the Marvel world, his abilities are almost the same as those of Green Arrow. They all used bows and arrows, multifunctional arrows. Therefore, Suzanne was really curious about who was stronger, Green Arrow or Hawkeye. Hawkeye. I've never heard of this name. If I have the chance, I wouldn't mind competing with him, said Oliver Queen. How's it going? Do you believe what I said now? Suzanne turned to ask Felice with a smile. Phyllis nodded repeatedly. In her understanding, the so-called superheroes all have special superpowers like Suzanne, but Oliver Queen is just an ordinary person. How powerful can he be, no matter how powerful he is? Now seeing Oliver's archery skills, she had to marvel, it was so fast and so accurate. Okay, my mission is over. I believe you must have a lot of personal matters to deal with, so I won't disturb you. This is my phone number. I will be in Star City during this week. If you need help, you can call me at any time. Suzanne used energy to float his number in the air, and waited until Oliver Queen remembered it before hugging Phyllis and leaving. Not long after leaving, Suzanne received another reminder. The friendliness level increased by 5% again. Finally, my time as a cleaner was not in vain. Suzanne knew very well that Oliver Queen would not ask him for help, at least not in the short term. After all, the opponents he encountered now were not very strong. However, in order to complete the task, Suzanne is ready to forcibly increase the friendship level. Oliver Queen came out of the court, legally restored to the fact of his resurrection, that is, restored to his citizenship. When he came out, he happened to meet Laurel, who was about to sue and deal with the Triads. Oliver Queen seems to have this name on his list as he remembers from the undercover gangster Summers. Back at the secret base, Oliver Queen investigated this Summers. He was very powerful and had a good background. The Star City police and the district attorney should be unable to do anything about him, or in other words, they didn't want to stop him. Oliver Queen knows Laurel, and he knows what Laurel thinks. She thinks she is the only one willing to come forward and bring Summers to justice. He is wrong. Oliver Queen, or rather Green Arrow, taking action. In a warehouse, Green Arrow found Summers, easily eliminated his men, and threatened Summers to surrender himself and bear the consequences of his crimes. Oliver Queen believed that this was enough for Summers to surrender, since his life was threatened, but in fact, he was a little naive. There are many people in this world who would not shed tears without seeing the coffin. After Summers responded to the police inquiry, he called in a man. Triad killers. Suzanne, who was familiar with the plot, was nearby when Oliver Queen started taking action, and he had been keeping an eye on Summers, so when he was asked to invite the Triad killers, Suzanne was also there because he very curious about this killer. Chen Naoe, a Triad leader. She wears a red dress, has straight white hair shawl, and her identity is rather mysterious. She only knows that she has a code name called By C. This nickname really fits her. When she first appeared, Suzanne thought she was a white-haired witch. Summers provides a port for the Triad to transport drugs and is considered a partner, so the purpose of inviting her here is to deal with Green Arrow. However, Chen Naoe obviously had other ideas. She believed that Laurel was the main target, and as long as she killed Laurel, the problem would naturally be solved. Suzanne didn't show up and didn't take action. Wouldn't taking action at this time miss the opportunity to increase friendship? Therefore, he just followed Chen Naoe quietly to make sure he knew when she would take action. Chen Naoe's location is very hidden, it should be one of the secret locations of the Triads. Suzanne found a secret place upstairs opposite her room and sat down, monitoring her every move. In the room, Chen Naoe stood near the window and slowly took off her red dress. Suzanne's eyes lit up slightly when he saw her beautiful and perfect figure. Unlike Phyllis' purely Western appearance, Chen Naoe obviously he is of Chinese descent and is of mixed race. He feels similar to Sky, even more Oriental in appearance than Sky, but his temperament is completely different. He is cold, handsome and arrogant, especially the white hair, which has a different kind of charm. Men all like novelty and excitement, and Suzanne is no exception. After Chen Naoe took off her skirt, she turned around and disappeared from sight. Not long after, she reappeared, but she had changed into a tight black leather jacket. Although this dress doesn't have the same flavor as the previous dress, it outlines the figure well, especially the legs, seems to be a little thinner than Phyllis. Looking at the clothes Chen Naoe put on, it was obvious that she was more suitable for taking action. It seemed that she was ready to take action. As expected, Chen Naoe packed up her clothes and left. Not long after, she saw Chen Naoe coming out of the downstairs with two people and getting into a van. Is this about to take action? Favorability, here I come. Suzanne smiled and followed him, floating in the dim night sky. Not long after, the car stopped and the three men got out of the car, put on their weapons and entered a building. Suzanne could clearly see from above that in one of the windows of this building, Laurel was sitting on the sofa chatting with Oliver Queen. Laurel and Oliver Queen seemed to be chatting happily, and Suzanne was impressed by the sight. "Sister, is that your ex-boyfriend? Is that the person who hooked up with your sister and killed your sister? Why did you forgive so easily?" However, Suzanne didn't bother to intervene in other people's affairs. He didn't have any thoughts about Laurel anyway. Silently watching the situation inside, the ether battle suit was already put on and he was ready to go. "Did you hear that?" Oliver Queen, who was joking, suddenly asked Laurel in a low voice. Laurel shook her head in confusion. Oliver Queen stood up slowly and vigilantly, picked up the fruit knife next to him, and slowly walked towards the door. Laurel followed him subconsciously. As soon as the two of them reached the door, just heard a bang. The door was suddenly opened with great force, and a man broke in directly. Oliver Queen pulled Laurel and ran away. The sound of gunshots rang out behind him instantly, and bullets were hitting the surroundings, asking Oliver Queen to follow. Laurel panicked and fled. Just as he bent over and ran into the bedroom, a man broke the window and entered. Unfortunately, Oliver Queen and Laurel could only turn around and find another hiding place. But as soon as he turned around and ran a few steps, he saw a woman with white hair and black leather clothing blocking the way with two short blades. Oliver Queen frowned and felt worried. At this time, the man who had rushed in from the door had already rushed over, and his gun was pointed directly at Oliver Queen. No place to hide. Oliver Queen subconsciously blocked Laurel behind him, helpless. Boom! Suddenly, gunfire rang out. It was not Oliver Queen who fell, but the man with the gun. Watching him slowly fall to the ground, Oliver Queen was a little unresponsive. Then he heard gunshots ring out again, and it calmed down after a moment. "It seems that I came at the right time." A voice chuckled, and then he appeared in front of everyone. "It's you." Seeing Suzanne, Oliver Queen was surprised but relieved. Green arrow. Oliver Queen, friendliness increased by 30%. A system prompt sounded. Suzanne was not surprised. Since he was planning to forcibly increase the friendship level, it would definitely increase. It's just, he didn't expect it to increase so much, 30%. The mission only requires 50%. There was 10% before, but now the total friendship level is 40%. It is only one step away from completing the mission. However, the increase of 5% and 5% before was actually a full 30% this time. Is it because of Laurel? If it were just to save Oliver Queen, it might not be much at all, not to mention that if Laurel wasn't around, maybe he wouldn't need to save himself. Is he the Green Lantern who saved you? Laurel looked at Suzanne and said in surprise. Oliver Queen nodded and was about to speak. Suzanne said, "Let's talk about it later. I'll go after the white-haired witch first." Only then did Oliver Queen realize that the white-haired witch had run away at some point. Suzanne went after the white-haired witch, while Oliver Queen stayed to comfort Laurel. At this time, there were footsteps again, and Oliver Queen looked warily, only to realize that it was his black bodyguard. If something like this happened, the police would definitely be called. Not long after, Laurel's father, Officer Lance, came with the police. They made sure that Laurel was fine, asked about the situation, and learned that it was Green Lantern who saved them. They couldn't help but somewhat curious. He has also investigated this Green Lantern. He was the one who saved Oliver Queen when he was kidnapped. It is said that this Green Lantern first appeared in Beach City, but there has been no news since then, and now he suddenly appears in Star City. And he saved Oliver Queen twice. Why? He asked Oliver Queen in a bad tone, and Oliver Queen naturally denied that he didn't know. In the end, Lance had no choice but to warn him to stay away from his daughter. Let's not talk about the trivial matters that Oliver Queen dealt with after the incident, but let's talk about Suzanne going after Chen Naoui. Chen Naoui's reaction was indeed very fast. She was worthy of being a killer of the Triads. She ran away as soon as she saw the situation was not going well. While running, he also skillfully used anti-tracking methods to try not to be discovered. Half an hour later, Chen Naoui had arrived at the port, and there was a boat ready for her to leave. In 3 steps and 2 steps, Chen Naoui jumped on the boat. After she got on, the boat quickly sailed out of the port. Chen Naoui entered the cabin and then breathed a long sigh of relief. Maybe Oliver Queen and Laurel didn't notice how Suzanne did it, but Chen Naoui could see it clearly. It was a very mysterious and special energy. After being a killer for so long, she also knew that there were many things in this world. People with special abilities, but I have never seen anything like this. So her first reaction was to run. It seems that I was right. At least, he didn't chase. Chen Naoui seemed to see someone next to her from the corner of her eyes. She quickly turned her head and was stunned for a moment. The dark uniform and the smiling mouth. Chen Naoui stood up instantly, held up her short blades with both hands, and stared at Suzanne. When did he catch up? I thought I had gotten rid of him. Who are you? If you go against the Triads, you should know what will happen. I advise you to mind your own business. Chen Naoui stared at Suzanne warily and said in a deep voice. Are you scared? Suzanne said with a smile. Usually you only use old-fashioned threats like this when you are scared. If you are not scared, you should just rush up and do it. Afraid? Huh, I've never been afraid. Chen Naoui said coldly. Really? That's the best. Suzanne smiled. Although Chen Naoui spoke firmly, she felt very unsure, especially when she heard the noise outside. The ship seemed to have stopped. It was obvious that the ship was probably controlled by the person in front of her. Either fight or jump into the sea and run away. There seemed to be no other choice. However, the success rate of these two options is probably very low. After a moment of silence, Chen Naoui gritted her teeth and decided to fight. Drink. With a soft drink, Chen Naoui waved her double blades and rushed towards Suzanne. 1 step, 2 steps. In the blink of an eye, Chen Naoui was in front of her, but Suzanne still didn't react. This made Chen Naoui feel happy, and the short blade had already stabbed towards his vital part. Heart. The short blade stopped abruptly just an inch away from her heart. Chen Naoui found that she couldn't move. She tried all her strength, but she couldn't move the short blade forward. Chen Naoui looked at Suzanne with a pale face, and struggled to shout, what did you do to me? I didn't do anything, I just wanted to tell you how big the gap is between you and me, so that you can give up your plan to fight to the death. Suzanne smiled softly and slowly raised his hand to look at Chen Naoui's shorts, blade. His finger scratched the short blade, and a wound instantly appeared. Oh, it's quite sharp, but it's useless. Suzanne smiled and raised his finger and pointed it at Chen Naoui. Chen Naoui could see clearly that the wound healed quickly. In almost 2 or 3 seconds, the wound disappeared without a trace. Is this still a human being? Chen Naoui was desperate. She had a special ability that could change, she could also immobilize herself, and she had such a strong healing and recovery ability. She was not on the same level as him at all, and there was no chance of winning at all. What do you want to do? If you want to kill, just give me a good death. Chen Naoui shouted in a deep voice. Suzanne smiled and shook his head. Don't worry, it's a long night, we have a lot of time, don't we? Actually, I don't have to kill you. After all, from a certain point of view, you have helped me. Without you, my affairs may not be completed so smoothly, so. Are you willing to let me go? Chen Naoui suddenly felt hopeful. So, at least I won't kill you, at least not this time. Suzanne paused and said. As for letting you go, it's not impossible, but, even though it's not very difficult to catch you, I can't let my trip go in vain, right? What on earth do you want? Chen Naoui could feel that he had no murderous intention towards her, but she didn't know what he wanted and how to let her go. Didn't I just say it? It's a long night and it wouldn't be boring if there was nothing to do. You have a very good figure. How about dancing? Suzanne slowly walked to the wine cabinet aside and took out the wine. I poured myself a glass, then walked to the sofa and sat down, crossing my legs, and withdrew my thoughts. Chen Naoui regained her freedom and turned around quickly. Dance. She looked at Suzanne in confusion. This request was a bit too unbelievable. Yes, dancing, of course, I'm talking about the kind of dance that gets cooler the more you dance. Suzanne said. Chen Naoui realized in an instant that he actually wanted to do a take off his clothes dance. You, don't go too far, kill me if you can. Chen Naoui said angrily. Suzanne shook his head. I said I won't kill you this time. But I have many ways to make you surrender. Believe me, it's definitely harder to accept than dancing. Are you considered a hero? Chen Naoui said. Suzan spread his hands. Heroes are human beings too, and they also have pursuits and hobbies, okay. What's more, I didn't kill you, and I didn't capture you and imprison you. It's pretty good, right? After all, you were almost there just now. How can I do it without making you pay some price for hurting my friend? Chen Naoui didn't know what methods Suzan would use to deal with her and make her surrender, but she didn't want to die. After hesitating for a long time, Chen Naoui gritted her teeth and started to swing stiffly. Suzan smiled softly and glanced at her approvingly. Perhaps she had already jumped on it. Chen Naoui gradually let go, her movements became wider, and her clothes gradually faded away. Suzan looked at it very seriously, and his eyes were not obscene, as if he was really appreciating the dance. This look made Chen Naoui feel relieved, and the embarrassment in her heart became much less. She felt a sense of satisfaction, and this sense of satisfaction is due to Suzan's appreciation and seriousness. Chen Naoui felt that she was crazy. She was still satisfied with such a humiliating thing, and she even danced more seriously without knowing it. She had no idea that her originally cold expression was now a little more feminine. She was naked and had been dancing for who knows how long. Chen Naoui was showing off her waist skills with her back to him, but she suddenly felt a sudden wind blowing around her, making her shiver slightly. She subconsciously turned around, but Suzan has disappeared. Chen Naoui stared blankly for a long time and didn't seem to react. He just left like this. Did you really just let yourself go after watching yourself dance for a while? Chen Naoui really couldn't believe it. Inexplicably, she actually had an idea. Is it because I have no charm, so I can't attract Suzan? After watching this dance, I don't even have any ideas for the next step. Anyway, he's gone. Chen Naoui breathed a sigh of relief, suppressed the feeling of worrying about gains and losses, and prepared to leave Star City. Isn't Chen Naoui attractive? Of course not. Doesn't Suzan have any ideas? Neither. Being able to convince such a ruthless female killer is a great sense of accomplishment for Suzan or any man. It's just that he has other things to do. Chanavi's move this time was quite big. Summers must have known that she had missed the target, and he also knew that Green Arrow would definitely come to find him, so he would definitely run away. This is an opportunity to kill 3 birds with 1 stone. First of all, the main mission is to protect Star City with Green Arrow. Defeating Summers, a gangster, naturally also protects Star City. Secondly, side mission 1, working with Green Arrow, can also be completed by the way. Moreover, there are 3 irons in men. We carried guns together, we passed out of windows together, we did whatever. This is the easiest way to increase friendship. Working together can definitely increase friendship, but I don't know how much. There are still 3 days left. If everything goes well, you can complete the task directly and relax in the rest of the time. Suzan went directly to the secret base and waited for a while. Oliver Queen was already here. Seeing Suzan, Oliver Queen was stunned for a moment, and then thanks, brother. Suzan shook his head. It's just a little effort. By the way, I let the white-haired witch go. Of course, I also made her pay a price. What price? Oliver Queen was a little surprised. Well, it's not important. Anyway, she will definitely die in a way that she will never forget. She is just a killer, not the mastermind. The real person to be solved is Summers. How about it? Together. Suzan didn't have the nerve to say it. He asked her to do a special dance and change the topic directly. The effect is great, and Oliver Queen immediately turns his attention to Summers. He came here just to deal with Summers. Good. Although he felt that he was enough to deal with Summers, he readily agreed to Suzan's invitation. Oliver Queen is all dressed up, including his Green Arrow uniform, bow and arrows, and his eyes are painted with green paint, which makes him look a little bit interesting. After thinking about it, Suzan also transformed into a bow and arrow and made some gestures. It felt good. Can you teach me bow and arrow when you have time? Suzan turned to Oliver Queen and said. Oliver Queen asked in confusion. You have so many abilities and are so powerful, but you still need a bow and arrow. Well, I think it's quite good to use for coolness. Oliver Queen was instantly confused and felt like he didn't want to talk to him. In Suzanne's opinion, his proud ability was just for being cool. He really wanted to kill him with one arrow, if he could. Let's go. Suzanne was just joking. The energy enveloped Oliver Queen, and the two of them flew out. Port Terminal. Summers was packing his things and preparing to run away. He hurriedly loaded up his things and asked the men next to him, "Is the ship ready?" The subordinate took out the walkie-talkie and contacted, "Is the Wallace ship ready?" "Wallace." There was a busy tone on the intercom, but no one answered. The men felt something was wrong, so they shouted a few more words tentatively, and Summers' movements also slowed down. "Wallace isn't here, but I am." Suddenly, a strange man's voice came from the intercom. Summers instantly heard it, "Green Arrow. We're leaving now, right away." After saying that, Summers picked up his things and turned around to leave. His panicked look puzzled his subordinates, who followed him and said, "Boss, there are at least 10 of us outside." "Not enough, far from enough," Summers said solemnly. Boom! The bow and arrow flew out, and a man fell to the ground. Oliver Queen quickly took out his bow and arrows, cocked it, drew the bow, and lay down alone again. Boom! The sound of gunshots suddenly rang out, and Oliver Queen turned his head and found that a huge shield appeared behind him, blocking it. Not far away, a man was holding a gun, looking at all this in surprise. "Thanks," Oliver Queen shouted. Suzanne next to him smiled, and the shield hit the man directly, knocking him to the ground and flying out. "There are a lot of people here, the surroundings are relatively messy, and it's dark, so it's very suitable for concealed shooting." They were all ordinary people, not counting soldiers and generals. Suzanne was too lazy to take action. He only occasionally helped Oliver Queen block bullets. It didn't take long before they were all solved. Oliver Queen saw Summers escaping and hurriedly chased after him. However, Summers ran very fast and was familiar with the terrain. Oliver Queen's attempts failed several times and he actually let him run away. Oliver Queen was extremely annoyed and continued to chase unwillingly. Suzanne suddenly flew by. "Leave it to me. You should retreat first. The police are coming." Oliver Queen was a little reluctant, but he had already heard the sound of police cars in the distance. "Leave it to you." In desperation, Oliver Queen had no choice but to withdraw. He believed that Suzanne would not miss. Summers ran wildly and looked back, worried that Green Arrow would catch up. He would be able to get on the boat right away. As long as he got on the boat, he would be safe. Thinking of this, Summers breathed a sigh of relief, turned around and continued running. As a result, when he turned around, he suddenly found a person standing in front of him, waiting for him with his hands on his shoulders. Summers was startled and hurriedly tried to change direction, but a ball of dark green rope suddenly entangled him and instantly hung him up. "You." Summers was about to speak. Suzanne had already floated in front of him and raised his hand. Pop, pap, pap. Suzanne slapped him with several slaps in succession. How could Summers withstand Suzanne's strength? After a few slaps, stars appeared in his eyes and his face was as swollen as a pig's head. "Look up and look at me." Suzanne took out the phone and dialed up the recording settings. His voice was cold. Even though Summers was dizzy from being beaten, he suddenly woke up after hearing these words and subconsciously raised his head to look at Suzanne. He saw the dark eyeballs, and immediately felt a trance, as if he had lost his soul. After a while, Suzanne put away the phone with satisfaction, and then suddenly regained his energy. Summers instantly fell out of the air and fainted. "Do not move." Suddenly, there was a shout from behind. Suzanne turned around and saw the policeman with a gun, Laurel's father, Officer Lance. "Are you the green light? I'm very grateful to you for saving my daughter, but now, you'd better go to the police station with me," Officer Lance said solemnly. Suzanne shrugged. "I'm afraid not. Although I have no intention of hiding my identity, I don't want to waste time. I'll help you catch him, so I'll leave first." After saying that, Suzanne slowly floated up and was ready to leave. Officer Lance was startled when he saw Suzanne flying up. When he saw that he was about to run, he felt a little panicked and subconsciously shot him. Bang, bang. The bullet hit Suzanne's face and was blocked by the energy of the lamp ring. Suzanne didn't expect that he would actually shoot. After all, he was his daughter's savior and helped him catch Summers, right? Although he looked frightened, it still felt unpleasant. Snort. Suzanne stared at him and snorted coldly, then disappeared. At that moment, Officer Lance felt that his back was soaked. "How's it going?" After leaving the dock, Suzanne quickly found Oliver Queen, who asked hurriedly. "He was caught and handed over to the police." "That's good." Oliver Queen breathed a sigh of relief, and then said worriedly, "It's just that even if we catch him, I'm afraid there won't be any evidence." "Don't worry, I'll take care of things. Just wait for the good news later," Suzanne said with a smile. Oliver Queen was completely relieved when he heard that Suzanne was prepared. Suzanne was also prompted by the system again, and his friendliness increased by 5%. Suzanne was a little disappointed, there was a little bit. "It seems that in the remaining few days, I still have to work hard." After separating from Oliver Queen, Suzanne returned to the hotel to find Phyllis and briefly told her what happened, but Phyllis listened very seriously. Clearly, she loves her boyfriend's heroics. "My dear, I want to tell you something, but don't get angry after hearing this." Phyllis held Suzanne's arm and begged coquettishly. "What's the matter? Let's talk about it first. I may not be able to accompany you. There are urgent matters at the company, and I have to go back to deal with them," Phyllis said apologetically. Suzanne was speechless. "That's it. What did I think it was? Since it's an emergency, let's go back. Anyway, I have to leave in a few days, and I won't be back for at least half a month. How about this? I'll take you back. It's better than you should fly quickly to save time." "Actually, there's something else we can do before we leave," Phyllis said in a low voice. Suzanne chuckled. "Are you sure? If we really do something, I'm afraid you won't be able to leave tonight." The morning sun enveloped the earth, and the breeze blew the curtains. Suzanne and Felice woke up from their sweet dreams. Looking at the lazy Felice, Suzanne said with a chuckle, "I'm right. If you want to do this, click something and you won't be able to leave. It's not too powerful. I've already told you that I can't do it anymore, but you still refuse to let me go," Felice said coquettishly. Suzanne chuckled. "I can't help it. Who told you that my man is too powerful? Be good, get up and clean up, and then I will take you back." "I don't have the strength, you pick me up." Phyllis stretched out her hands and said coquettishly. "Happy to oblige." Suzanne chuckled and hugged her directly. After washing up, it was almost 8 o'clock, and there was no time for breakfast. Suzanne sent Phyllis directly back to Beach City, and came back after reluctantly leaving. "He still has things to do. We still need 5% of the friendship level to complete the task, and the Summers matter is not completely resolved." Back in Star City, Suzanne went to Laurel's law firm. You can feel the busy atmosphere as soon as you enter. Everyone is busy with their own things with their heads down. After taking a few steps, Suzanne has already seen Laurel frowning at the desk. At this time, Laurel looked up and saw Suzanne. Suzanne smiled at him. She was stunned for a moment and quickly recognized him. "It's you." Laurel stood up in a hurry and said happily, "Why are you here?" "I came to see you for something. Do you have time? Let's go out and chat." "Good." Laurel simply turned around, picked up her bag, and went out with Suzanne. A nearby restaurant. Laurel kept thanking Suzanne. "I really don't know what to say. You not only saved me and Oliver, but also captured Summers. It's just..." Speaking of Summers, Laurel was a little depressed. "Evidence? No evidence. Actually, I know a little about you and Oliver. I'm really curious. Is he your ex-boyfriend? He also killed your sister. Why do I feel like you don't hate him very much?" Suzanne asked casually. "Road." Laurel was silent for a moment and said, "Hate, why don't I hate? In fact, although he is my ex-boyfriend, but we were not together for a long time, and nothing happened. Maybe his purpose from the beginning was probably to get in touch with my sister through me. If I had known what would happen, even if it was just for a short time, or even a nominal boyfriend and girlfriend, I would never have agreed." "Huh, this is unexpected news." From the tone of her voice, it seems like her relationship with Oliver isn't very good, right? "I didn't forgive him, but when I saw him, I thought of my sister, you know. It's like a kind of sustenance." Laurel looked at Suzanne and said. Suzanne nodded and asked with a bit of gossip, "What about Tommy?" "Tommy? What does it have to do with Tommy?" Laurel looked at Suzanne blankly. "No. Doesn't it matter?" Suzanne felt a little confused. This reaction was wrong. Could it be that he had remembered the plot wrong? Or, is this world different from what I remember? You weren't with Tommy. How is it possible? Laurel said excitedly. How could I be with Tommy? I knew Tommy when I met Oliver. We just knew each other and took care of each other. After all, during those days, he lost his best friend, and I lost my sister. Well, maybe I was wrong. Seeing how confident Laurel looked, Suzanne was 100% sure that some things in this world were different from what he remembered. What is this? Butterfly effect, or what? But think about it, many things in the main Marvel world don't match his memory. Well, I have something here that you might need. Suzanne took out his phone and played a recording. After hearing the contents of the recording, Laurel immediately said excitedly, "Great, with this evidence, Summers will spend his whole life in a cell." "Do you want it?" Suzanne asked with a smile. "Of course, you will give it to me, right? You are a hero who punishes rape and eliminates evil, aren't you?" As expected of a lawyer. Suzanne smiled and said, "As long as you answer me a question to satisfy my curiosity, I will give you this recording." "What is the problem? Are you still a virgin?" Suzanne asked directly. Laurel was stunned. "Why do you ask? You just have to answer me, yes or no." Laurel's eyes averted and she didn't speak, but she nodded slightly. "That's it, give me the phone number and I'll pass it on to you." Suzanne smiled with satisfaction. Laurel hurriedly took out the phone, and Suzanne sent the recording and saved the number at the same time. Laurel saw Suzanne save his number, but did not stop or refuse. "Okay, I've given you the things, and this matter is finally over. I should stay in Star City for a few more days, and then I'll leave." "Back to Beach City?" Laurel asked. Suzanne smiled. "It seems you know me very well. Green Lantern, your news has spread widely. There is also a Green Arrow who seems to be local to Star City. Do you know who it is?" "I know, but I can't tell you." "Then, can you tell me what your name is?" Laurel was a little disappointed, but she didn't care much about Green Arrow. Suzanne, I remember." Laurel murmured. "Okay, it's almost time, so I won't bother you, a barrister, to plead for the people." Suzanne stood up with a smile, looked at Laurel and said, "Your father shot me twice yesterday, so I'm going to take revenge on him, use you to take revenge on him." "Ah," Laurel shouted unexpectedly. She didn't expect her father to shoot Suzanne, nor did she expect that Suzanne would suddenly say something about revenge. After all, he didn't look like he wanted revenge at all. "If you can promise to stay single and stay away from Oliver Queen or Tommy, I will tell you the secret about your sister." "What do you know?" Laurel said excitedly. "Want to know? I'll see how you behave when we meet next time and I'll consider whether to tell you or not." Suzanne smiled and put the money on the table, then turned around and prepared to leave. "Why?" Laurel asked inexplicably. "Just think of this as my revenge." Suzanne laughed, turned and left. After leaving the restaurant, Suzanne raised the corners of his mouth slightly. "Because of the temporary gossip, I didn't expect that so many things would be asked, and I didn't expect that Laurel would still be a virgin. Speaking of which, Laurel has a good figure and appearance, but because she understands the plot, or the original plot, she loses interest in her preliminarily. Now, I can't say I'm very interested, but my senses have changed a lot." Therefore, he had the so-called revenge just on a whim. After all, Laurel cared about her sister Sarah, especially after Oliver Queen came back alive, and she must have fantasized that maybe her sister was still alive. She must have wanted to know that he suddenly said something about her sister. Is it a kind of torture for him to stretch her like this? Ding. Second generation Black Canary. Laurel, friendliness increased by 50%. After walking a few steps, Suzanne received a system prompt and was a little surprised. Didn't expect this to be 50%. It seems that his position in her heart is quite important. Is it because he saved her, gave her the recording evidence, and the news about her sister? But it doesn't matter, it's just incidental anyway. His current goal was to gain Oliver Queen's 5% favorability rating. As for the method, Suzanne had already thought of it. Anyway, there are still 3 days left. During these 3 days, I will be with him. Learning from each other should be able to increase the friendship by almost 5%, right? By the way, you can learn from each other and improve your melee combat ability. However, sometimes plans are not as fast as changes. As soon as Suzanne arrived at Oliver Queen's secret base, he received a system prompt to increase his friendliness by 5%. When I met Oliver Queen, I realized that he already knew that he had given the evidence to Laurel and could bring Summers to justice. It was for this reason that the friendship level increased by 5%. The main missions and side missions are all completed. This instantly relaxed Suzanne's mood. In the next 3 days, Suzanne spent the day sparring with Oliver Queen and devouring ether particles at night. He lived a very leisurely life. I have to say here that Suzanne has made very rapid progress. His physical fitness and explosive power are better than Oliver Queen in all aspects. What he lacks is experience and skills. After these 3 days of competition, you can feel that he has greatly improved every day. On the first day of the battle, Suzanne did not use his abilities. Putting aside his physical fitness, just in terms of skills, the result of the competition was that Oliver Queen still had the upper hand. On the second day, it was already close to a draw, and by the third day, Suzanne was occasionally able to win. According to Oliver Queen, Suzanne is like a sponge, absorbing water very quickly and having very strong understanding. The only thing he lacks now may be experience. Suzanne Dao agreed with this point. Having ability is one thing, using ability is another thing. Experience is very important. You are leaving. Suzanne told Oliver Queen that he was ready to leave, but Oliver Queen was a little reluctant to leave. After just a few days of getting along with him, he felt that Suzanne was like a comrade he had known for many years. Well, I have other things to deal with, so I'll leave Star City to you, Suzanne said with a smile. Well, bon voyage, fair wind. After saying goodbye and leaving, Suzanne found a deserted place and left from the dungeon plane. This time he was not in a hurry to enter the supernatural plane, nor did he erase the Green Lantern plane and choose a new plane. The main reason is that he doesn't know which plane to go to at the moment, or in other words, he doesn't lack anything at the moment, and it won't be too late to go in when needed. What's more, the White Queen and Magneto are eyeing her, and she is worried that something will happen if she leaves for too long. System, what are the rewards for this mission? Suzanne returned to the main world of Marvel, appeared in his room, and then asked the system. Very rich. The system's voice sounded a little fluctuating. It seemed that the reward this time should be very good. What will happen if I don't enter the remaining planes? Can I enter at any time, and then recalculate the refresh time after leaving, or will the refresh time be unified with the Green Arrow's plane? Suzanne asked. You can enter at any time. The refresh time of the dungeon is independent, based on the time you leave the dungeon. That's good. Just don't waste the copy time. Suzanne came out of the room and asked about the status of the project. They were all used to Suzanne's sudden disappearance for several days. Seeing Suzanne return, Huan said, Boss, I need to ask you for something. What's up? That's right, Pepe Pazzi, also known as Little Pepper, said that we can actually find someone to build our foundation. Although the cost may be higher, the speed will be very fast. Keep talking, Suzanne said casually. Yes, Pepe said that there is an organization or company called Damage Control, which is responsible for cleaning, recovery and reconstruction. They have very advanced engineering technology and can complete the cleaning and reconstruction work in a short time. This company it's very mysterious. It is said that it cooperates with government departments, S.H.I.E.L.D., and some private companies, including Stark Industries. It specializes in repairing buildings damaged by superheroes and criminals. During the Battle of New York, after the war, a large part of New York was rebuilt by their company, which is very efficient and reliable. So, what Pepe means is that if it is left to them, it will be much faster. How fast? 1 month. It's because the time is very fast, that's why boss needs you to take attention. If the time is about the same, there is no need to consider them at all. A month. This is really fast. In fact, Suzanne had suspected such a company a long time ago. After all, the world of Marvel almost always develops turmoil, wars, and alien invasions. The damage caused is patchy, but soon it will be again. Everything has been rebuilt and returned to normal, which would have been impossible without a company like this. It's impossible for the government to maintain so many engineering teams specifically responsible for reconstruction, right? Where's Little Pepper? She should be able to contact the person in charge of this company, right? I'll see you first. Suzanne originally hoped to build the base as soon as possible. It would be great if this company was reliable. Therefore, Suzanne planned to meet him first to see if he was reliable before making a decision. I'll go talk to Peppa Pig. Twinkle nodded and turned around to find Pepper. Xiaojiao came very quickly. When he saw the Soviet Union, he greeted him emphatically and then gave a serious and brief summary of the company. By the way, he also said that the reason why he thought of this company was because it was in New York. Stark Industries was severely damaged during the war, and this company was responsible for rebuilding it. Therefore, considering its credibility and the company's capabilities, I took the liberty to mention it to Flickr and recommend it to Suzanne. Seeing Xiao Chili's meticulous look, Suzanne couldn't help but smile and said, I'm really not used to you looking like this. To be honest, I'm starting to worry about what if you're not here with me anymore after I get used to it. Pepper smiled and said nothing. Can you contact that company? I plan to talk to them. I know where their company is, so I can go there directly. After all, it might not be that convenient for them to come here, and if you go to the company, you can also have a more intuitive understanding of the company. Okay, can you please accompany me? I have to say that Xiaojiao was indeed thoughtful. Shall I call for Twinkle? During this period, little Pepper also knew a lot of things. If he wanted to go out here, he could only trouble Twinkle. After all, this place is not close to the coast. No, I'll just take you there. Do you want to fly? Or take a boat? Suzanne smiled and took little Pepper away. In the end, little Pepper decided to fly because it was convenient. Although flying in the steel suit last time was bumpy, it felt really good. How do you feel? The two came to the shore, and Suzanne directly transformed a steel suit for little Pepper. Of course, this suit was made of energy and was only dark green in color. Little Pepper was very surprised and subconsciously tried it. Soon a booster appeared under her feet and she flew up instantly. Oh my god, this is so amazing, it's like it's real. Pepper said in surprise. Suzanne smiled, controlled the energy with his mind, and flew away with little Pepper. In New York City, at the intersection of 5th Avenue and Broadway in Manhattan, there is a very unique building that looks like an Flatiron building. This is damage control. After Suzanne and Xiaojiao landed, they walked in under the surprised eyes of people nearby. After entering the building, Pepper went to negotiate with the front desk, while Suzanne started fighting out of curiosity. It seemed that the company was very large. Not long after, Pepper took Suzanne to the elevator and to the top floor, where he met the company's operations director, Anne-Marie, a middle-aged woman who looked very capable. On the way, Suzanne told Xiaojiao that she would mainly handle business matters. She was more experienced and capable than him anyway. The reason why Suzanne followed him was mainly to see if this person or company was reliable. Reliable. While Pepper was discussing business, Suzanne had been staring at Anne-Marie. It could be seen that she was a very smart and capable woman. This kind of special company really can't be run if it doesn't have some skills. Ms. Anne. Seeing that they were almost done talking, Suzanne suddenly shouted. Anne-Marie turned her head and looked over, only to be mentally controlled by Suzanne in an instant. Suzanne asked a few questions. They were nothing more than drawings after construction, some defense plans, circuit diagrams and so on. Will they be sold to others? Will there be any backdoors? After all, if someone wants to deal with it in the future, what should I do about this base? But the answer was very satisfying to Suzanne. Obviously there was a reason why their company had been able to operate for so long, especially for such a large-scale construction project. If it didn't have a good reputation and no one trusted it, where would the business be? These drawings will be destroyed after construction is completed, and their employees will carefully review them and will not betray customers. Although it is not foolproof, there is nothing you can do about it, and this base will not take too long. When you completely swallow the ether particles, you can modify reality and build your own base. After removing the mental control, Suzanne simply modified her memory to prevent her from knowing that he had controlled her. Then a contract was signed, guaranteeing that the construction would be completed within a month, and people would be dispatched to build it immediately. Afterwards, Suzanne and Pepper left the Flatiron building. Well, the name of this building is really weird. Suzanne complained in his mind, then looked at Xiao Chili and said, "It's a rare time to come out. What can you do, or do you want to buy something?" Little Hot Sauce smiled. "I wanted to buy a few sets of clothes. I was in a hurry when I came here and didn't have many changes of clothes." "No problem," Suzanne said with a smile, and then went shopping with Xiaojiao. Even though Little Pepper usually dresses very seriously and dignified, that's because she has to dress like that because she often goes out to deal with business. In private, Little Pepper's dressing style is still very feminine. After shopping for a while, Suzanne already had several more bags in his hands. When going shopping with a woman, how could she be allowed to carry her own things? Moreover, these things were all paid for by Suzanne, so he called it a reward to thank Xiaojiao for her hard work during this time. Although Suzanne is not as rich as Tony Stark yet, that is only temporary. What's more, if he wanted to, he could have more money than the whole world combined. After all, he had countless planes to explore. "There's a coffee shop over there, let's go have a rest." Suzanne pointed to the coffee shop next to him and said to Little Pepper. Little Pepper said apologetically, "It's been a long time since I've been shopping freely like this. I accidentally lost control. You must be bored, right?" "No, I'm just worried that you will be tired. After all, you are wearing high heels and your legs are still so thin," Suzanne said with a smile, and then the two of them went to the coffee shop. The things were put aside, and the waiter had just brought the coffee. Suzanne was about to speak when he suddenly heard a commotion outside. Little Pepper was startled. Suzanne turned around and saw that the crowd outside was scattered in panic. The car was swaying on the road. A man was supported in the air by steel claws. He was waving the steel claws like octopus claws and pinned the man down, out of the wall. "Dr. Octopus," Suzanne muttered and looked at the guy who was pressed against the wall. Unsurprisingly, it was Spider-Man Parker. They were also old rivals. "I didn't expect that they would be fighting here by such a coincidence." Woke up. However, Suzanne noticed that besides them, above Spider-Man, there was a man in black with his limbs stretched out on the wall. "Oh, isn't this Venom?" Suzanne couldn't help but laugh. This was really lively. Suzanne didn't expect to encounter such a situation even when he went shopping with Pepper and had a coffee. He watched Spider-Man being grabbed by Dr. Octopus's mechanical tentacles and smashing him against the wall, watching the wall gradually crack. Suzanne grinned subconsciously. "It hurts so much." "Hey, that's all. I thought you would have something new." Spider-Man shouted towards Dr. Octopus, and suddenly stretched out his hand and quickly sent out spider silk. Chirp. The spider silk instantly hit Dr. Octopus's face. Dr. Octopus stretched out his hand to pull it, and was momentarily distracted from controlling the mechanical tentacles. Spider-Man took advantage of this moment to break free, sent out spider silk at the wall behind Dr. Octopus, raised his feet, swung up, and kicked him hard. Ah! Chirp. Spider-Man's ankle was suddenly entangled, and a huge force came from behind, directly pulling Spider-Man back from the air, and smashed him directly against the wall with a bang. A pit instantly appeared in the wall. Spider-Man was knocked dizzy, but Venom's somewhat terrifying face revealed a ferocious smile. He flicked his thick arm hard, and the poor little spider was thrown out uncontrollably. This time, it was in the direction of the coffee shop. "Ah! Run!" Seeing Spider-Man flying over, Pepper hurriedly shouted. "It's okay, I'm here." Suzanne smiled at Xiaojiao, slowly picked up the coffee and took a sip. Boom! The glass window of the coffee shop was directly smashed by Spider-Man, and it was about to hit this side. A huge barrier suddenly appeared near the table, which knocked Spider-Man back. Dr. Octopus just happened to tear off the spider silk. Before he could see what was going on, he saw Spider-Man flying over. Without thinking, the mechanical tentacles directly hit him. He hit a target accurately. The poor little spider was instantly hit and fell to the ground on the road. Ah! The whole process changed very quickly. By the time Pepper Potts reacted, Dr. Octopus was using his power to torture Spider-Man. "Oh my God, go save him!" Little Pepper hurriedly shouted to Suzanne. Suzanne slowly put down the coffee cup, glanced at Spider-Man and was about to speak, when he suddenly saw a mechanical tentacle reaching out. "Save him, just you." Dr. Octopus lifted Spider-Man up with his other tentacles. He looked at Spider-Man's arms drooping, his hands swinging, and his head drooping. He was obviously fainted. You're so irresistible. Suzan curled his lips and didn't even look at the arrogant Dr. Octopus. Instead, he glanced at Venom, who had been lying on the wall with interest. I don't know if I can swallow this venom if I get it. You're watching here. This coffee tastes really good, so you'd better drink it quickly. Suzan said to Xiao Chili with a smile, slowly stood up and walked out. Haha, what are you doing here? Do you want to save Spider-Man? What about you? I can crush you to death with just one tentacle. The mechanical tentacle stretched out and dangled in front of Suzan. Suzan frowned slightly and said calmly, actually, I have no objection at all to you teaching Spider-Man a lesson. This guy really needs a lesson. But who told you to choose a bad place? You just interrupted our coffee. That guy, since all the beautiful ladies have spoken, I can only do it reluctantly. So, who of you comes first? How about, the one on the wall comes first? Suzan turned to look at Venom. Ha ha ha, I think you are either crazy or impatient. You actually want him to come first. Do you know who he is? That is Venom, a Venom stronger than Spider-Man. Dr. Octopus saw Suzan was so overwhelmed that he actually wanted to provoke Venom and couldn't help laughing and taunting him. He can kill you with just one finger. Really? Suzan turned around without comment, his eyes burning, full of fighting spirit. At that moment, Venom felt like he was trapped in an ice cave, dangerous, very dangerous. Venom climbed on the wall and remained motionless, as if he hadn't heard anything. Dr. Octopus was a little confused. He knew Venom's character very well, and he was definitely not someone who could swallow his anger. Finally, he saw Venom move. That's right, kid, you'd better run, maybe you can live a few more seconds. Dr. Octopus stopped abruptly before he finished speaking, as if someone had grabbed his throat. He looked at Venom running away in disbelief, unable to believe his eyes. It's moving, Venom is indeed moving. But TM didn't go to kill the ignorant boy in front of him at all, but ran away. Run, why did he run away? Dr. Octopus muttered. Maybe you were scared away by me. Suzan was a little disappointed when he saw Venom running away like that. It seems that his fighting intention was too obvious just now. He felt threatened and ran away without fighting. Scared away? You said Venom was scared away. Are you kidding? Who do you think you are to scare Venom away? Forget it, that guy is a psychopath. Since he ran away, let me end your life. Dr. Octopus simply didn't believe that Venom would be scared away, thinking that he might be mentally disturbed or temporarily in trouble. Anyway, Spider-Man is on his last legs. Isn't it just a matter of minutes to deal with this overestimating kid in front of him? Thinking of this, the mechanical tentacles suddenly hit him. Bang! The huge mechanical tentacles smashed down and made a thick sound. The ground cracked and cracked, dust flew up, and smoke enveloped the area. Ha ha ha, boy, you are just an appetizer. I will kill you first, and then I will kill Spider-Man. You can still be a companion. The power of the mechanical tentacles can lift 8 tons of things, and it can exert its full power when attacking. At least 10 tons of power. The blow just now probably smashed that boy into a pulp. Dr. Octopus lifted Spider-Man in front of him, and the 4 mechanical tentacles grabbed Spider-Man's 4 sides, making him look like a big font. He actually wanted to tear Spider-Man apart. The power of the mechanical tentacles gradually increased, and Spider-Man let out a painful groan. I said, can you be more professional when you kill people? Don't start in an anticlimactic manner. Just when Dr. Octopus was expecting Spider-Man to be torn apart, he suddenly heard a voice. He turned his head and looked at Suzan, who appeared after the smoke blew away. His eyes widened instantly and he subconsciously threw Spider-Man to the ground. How is this possible? You can't be alive, it can't be, you, who are you? The smoke dissipated, and the ether uniform was already worn on Suzan. He looked coldly at the frightened Dr. Octopus and twisted his neck. Who am I? If you are still alive later, you will naturally know who I am. As soon as he finished speaking, Suzan moved instantly and ran towards Dr. Octopus. Although Dr. Octopus was shocked, his reaction was not slow. 2 mechanical tentacles quickly hit Suzan. Looking at the mechanical tentacles, Suzan didn't dodge at all. He suddenly reached out and grabbed the 2 mechanical arms. Fire! With a low roar, Suzan's hands instantly turned into 2 pillars of fire. The intense heat burned the mechanical tentacles. Dr. Octopus was frightened and hurriedly tried to pull them back, but the mechanical tentacles did not move at all and were pulled tightly by Suzanne. Sizzling, sizzling. The mechanical tentacles begin to melt. Dr. Octopus quickly controlled the two mechanical tentacles supporting his body and hit Suzanne. Having many tentacles is his advantage. Snort. Suzanne sneered contemptuously, and two identical mechanical tentacles suddenly appeared in front of him and crashed into him. Boom. The huge force caused Dr. Octopus's mechanical shot to rebound instantly, and the force of the shock caused him to fall directly to the ground. Whined. Although Dr. Octopus fell, the two mechanical tentacles held by Suzanne did not let go, and the flames had spread throughout the tentacles. As Suzanne roared again, his arms shook rapidly, followed by a strong wind. With the strong wind, the flames instantly intensified and became even hotter. Almost in the blink of an eye, the two mechanical tentacles directly transformed. For ashes. Run, must run. Dr. Octopus no longer bothered to guess Suzanne's identity. Now he suddenly understood why Venom escaped. Ya must have known how powerful this person was, so he ran away first. The remaining two mechanical tentacles suddenly emitted light waves, which Suzanne transformed into a wall and blocked easily. The light wave dissipated, the shield was removed, and Dr. Octopus had already controlled the two remaining mechanical arms to escape. Although there are only two left, the speed is not slow at all. Chase, don't let Dr. Octopus escape. Brother, come on, don't let him run away. Brother, you're awesome. What's your name? Your abilities are so cool. Suddenly there was a shout of applause in his ears, and Suzanne raised the corners of his mouth slightly. Run. Did he run away? As the words fell, Dr. Octopus screamed in agony as he was escaping in front of him. Then everyone discovered that a dark green cage appeared next to Dr. Octopus. No, it wasn't a cage, it should be a large vault. Come back. Suzanne raised his hand and pulled back, and the huge vault flew back instantly, and then fell heavily to the ground with a thud. Suzanne slowly raised his hands, and two swords similar to Tang's swords appeared. Bang, bang, bang. The door to the vault slowly opened, and the mechanical tentacles suddenly sprang out and headed straight for Suzanne. Be careful. The incident happened suddenly, and someone nearby exclaimed. Suzanne sneered, and suddenly slashed open with his two swords. Click. The mechanical tentacle was cut off directly. Suzanne raised his knife and lowered it, just like chopping vegetables, cutting off the mechanical tentacle piece by piece. Then the energy in the vault disappeared, and a dazzling light wave suddenly blasted over, and the Tang knife in his left hand transformed. Using him as a shield to block the light wave, Suzanne moved forward against the light wave step by step. Go to hell, go to hell, go to hell. Dr. Octopus was already a little hysterical. He kept increasing the energy of the light waves, but he was unable to stop Suzanne from moving forward. PFF'd. Suzanne swung the knife with his right hand, and the mechanical tentacles were cut off immediately. The light wave changed direction instantly, blasting a big crater into the ground, and then lost its energy. Remember, in the next life, don't deal with these superheroes in front of me. Suzanne said coldly and waved his swords from both sides. The moment when the two swords crossed each other, a head suddenly flew up, and then fell to the ground with a gurgling sound. Silence, overwhelming silence. It was as if the world was frozen, and the previous noisy cheers disappeared. The two swords disappeared. Suzanne lowered his head and looked at his clothes. The ether suit was just fine, not a drop of blood on it. Have you finished drinking? Let's go after drinking. Turning around and walking back to the cafe, Suzanne asked Xiao Chili. Little Pepper didn't drink coffee at all, so she nodded subconsciously when she heard Suzanne's question. Suzanne put his arms around Xiaojiao and flew away. Only Dr. Octopus's abandoned mechanical arm, the separated corpse, and of course, Spider-Man, who had not yet woken up not far away, were left. After a long, long time, someone spoke softly. It's so scary. Did you see it? He looked so scary just now. With a wave of his two swords, Dr. Octopus's head flew away with just a whoosh. What are you afraid of? This is Chinese Kung Fu and it's cool. That's right, he killed Dr. Octopus, a super criminal, not to mention he also saved Spider-Man. If it weren't for him, Spider-Man would definitely have died. Let me tell you, he is the real superhero. For a criminal like Dr. Octopus, he should be killed completely. Soon, the people around him started talking, and the fear and shock gradually faded away. Although they still don't know who Suzanne is, they have firmly remembered his appearance. Afraid, on the way back to the base, Suzanne looked at Xiaojiao, who had been silent, and asked in a low voice. Pepper nodded. Yes, a little bit. Why, you should know that he is a bad guy, not to mention that I won't hurt you. Suzanne asked in a low voice. Little Pepper shook his head. I know, it's not because of this, it's just. I'm just a little shocked. It's not that I've never seen dead people, it's just that the visual impact of your method is too strong, so I can't help but feel a little scared. Now it's much better. That's good, I don't want him to affect my impression in your heart. Suzanne said with a chuckle. Killing Dr. Octopus is not a burden to Suzanne. Anyway, he has no superpowers and is a bad villain, so he should just die. Not only can the public know who he is, but it can also be regarded as establishing his authority, letting them know that he is not some kind-hearted Madonna. But speaking of it, Dr. Octopus's death was quite unjust. If it hadn't happened by chance, and Pepper happened to be still with him, Suzanne wouldn't have bothered to kill him. When they returned to the base, Pepper had returned to normal and turned to find Flicker to arrange for the workers to leave. After all, the damage control company was about to take over. But Suzanne received a call. S.H.I.E.L.D., Nick Fury. Looking at the number on the phone, Suzanne was really annoyed. If you do something for yourself, S.H.I.E.L.D. will come to your door. If you do something, S.H.I.E.L.D. will come to your door. Are you so free, staring at me every day? After answering the phone, Suzanne said in a bad tone, You'd better give me a bonus when you call me, otherwise you'd better hang up. There's no bonus or anything, I just want to thank you for saving Spider-Man. Nick Fury was stunned by Suzanne's tone, and then he spoke. It's okay to say thank you verbally. What's more, who said I did it just for him? It's good that I didn't help deal with him. Suzanne said angrily and said impatiently, There's nothing else. Right, I have nothing else to do. Etc. Nick Fury shouted hurriedly, but unfortunately, there were already busy signals on the phone. This guy, Nick Fury shouted angrily, no one had ever dared to hang up on him like this. He contacted Suzanne. On the one hand, he really wanted to thank him for saving Spider-Man. On the other hand, he also wanted to remind him not to be so high profile. It would be satisfying to kill Dr. Octopus in the street. Some people agreed, but more ordinary people. But I'm still scared, after all, it's too bloody and shocking. What's more, due to American law, people are used to criminals being arrested and imprisoned. It is rare to kill them so cleanly and directly, especially when they are sure to win. But now it seems that he may not be able to persuade Suzanne, because they won't give him face at all. The workers on the island have been sent away by Shuang Shuang. Of course, the wages during this period have not been reduced at all, but even a lot more. Therefore, each of these workers was very grateful. After seeing them off, the island instantly became much cleaner. Suzanne called everyone to the conference room of the spaceship. Twinkle, Marrow, Chen Haoran, Little Pepper, and a dark elf who is equivalent to a driver. There are still a few people. Suzanne sighed secretly, and then raised his voice. The damage control company will take over the project here soon. It is said that it will be completed in just 1 month, so I am going to S.H.I.E.L.D. this month. Flash, Little Pepper, I have to trouble you two to keep an eye on the progress of the project. As for Haoran and Marrow, you two stay on the ship and use this time to improve your strength as much as possible. It won't be long, you should have a chance to show off. Quote. Yes, no one else had any objections to Suzanne's arrangement. Little Pepper opened her mouth slightly as if she wanted to say something, but in the end she didn't speak. Of course Suzanne saw Xiaojiao's reaction, but he pretended not to notice. Little Pepper stayed here to repay his kindness, and he made it clear that he stayed to help with the construction of the foundation. Once the construction is successful, Little Pepper will probably leave. Just now, he hinted that he was used to her presence and what to do if she left, but Little Pepper didn't respond. So Suzanne forcibly arranged the task for her. The base hasn't been built yet anyway, not to mention that you contacted this company, so you must stay here and follow. As for after the base is built, think of other ways to keep Little Pepper. Master, we detected someone approaching here. The dark elf suddenly whispered. Oh, can you see who it is? Suzanne asked, and the dark elf operated quickly. After a moment, the picture appeared on the screen. A speedboat was sailing in here quickly. When he saw the people on the speedboat clearly, Suzanne was a little surprised. She raised the corners of her mouth slightly, finally knowing why he came suddenly. Call me boss like them from now on, Suzanne said to the dark elf. The dark elf was ecstatic and nodded repeatedly. I hope everyone will support it and subscribe more.